What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Local Comic Shop Day live on the EXP. I am your host for all things that have been the past 18 hours. And I got 6 more to go, but I'm going to start it off with some of my favorite people in the business, not just because they all have better hair than me and Brian and I have the same haircut, or because, well, they're just fun to listen to, but because they're the only people who understand exactly what's happening in the comic industry, because shock of shocks, they know about data. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. I'm going to play their video.
Coming to you from top secret field offices worldwide, these brave men and women fight a battle for truth, justice, and good, clean data. These agents of change make up the Bureau of Records, Objects, and Standards. They are the Data Bros.
Hey,
buddy!
Welcome.
You guys, we have some killer intro music.
I know it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And you know what? I'm a little disappointed that that is not our current logo. That's our old logo.
It's 3 old logos.
Oh, no,
It's pretty
Well,
great.
yeah.
Branding is something Django focuses on a lot. We found some old shelf talkers while we were moving out of our retro location just lately, and they've got like useful little quotes and pictures of our face, and like we've needed more of them. And I was like, oh sweet, Django, I found these. He's like, but that's not our branding color anymore. I was like, but they're useful and they look good. So branding colors.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Please
that
don't lie.
entire video came together about a minute before this video started. So
Nice.
while I was spaced out as you were asking me who I was editing a video in the background and also participating in a podcast. And this is the kind of thing I do because I have ADHD terribly, and I'm constantly thinking about data. So why don't we introduce ourselves?
I love that.
There's some people out there who don't know who we are.
Yeah, I'm Django. I'm a data bro.
Yeah.
I'm Jeffrey. I'm a Django enthusiast. I've started several fan clubs and have a lot of online presence supporting and sharing the word and gospel of Django, and also a data bro.
But how's the branding on those things?
It stands up like the Tower of Pisa. It's perfect.
And I am Brian Garslide, and I am a data bro.
It's like Data Bros Anonymous.
DBA,
Data
if you
bro
will.
for multiple years now.
And I discuss
Let's see.
data with people.
2 of us run a physical store. 3 of us run an online store. 2 of us are on the Comet Standards board. 3 of us.
One of us, if not for them, there would be no Comet Standard, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while.
And all 3 of us work on building point of sale systems.
That's true.
And not the same one, ironically.
Not the same one. No, we're mostly here to provide an example to all people that competition doesn't have to be adversarial. You can have podcasts with one another and be subtly trying to sabotage the other under the covers the whole time.
Oh, I don't know that it's subtle.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
I think the saboteurs in this whole 3-pointed relationship are me and Jeff sabotaging each other, which that's probably the worst dynamic here that you can have.
Yeah, I've never made Jeff vomit, and that is true for you. So
everybody, just a heads up, when you get to, if you are also a comic book retailer and you are here and you're watching this, if you get to have those wonderful moments where you celebrate, you know, friendship and your profession with other comic store retailers, make sure you eat beforehand, especially if you're on the road.
Also, make sure you don't binge Succession before that happens. Just
that's true. Yeah. Or conversely, anytime you're going to a big retail meeting like that, make sure you binge Succession so you can see through all the BS.
Guys, I thought for this episode, since we haven't done one of these for a minute, although we're still on time, this season we're entirely on time.
Absolutely.
It'd be fun to talk a little bit about our secret origin and kind of go back to that time. Back, we can go as far back as we want. If we want to talk about the Data Bros secret origin before we even knew we were Data Bros.
The secret history of the DB universe.
Yeah, like
Data Bro Island.
2021, I think, was when we first met.
Yeah, I think so.
No. Dude, we're not going Data Bro Island.
I don't know.
Fine. Hey, fine. Hey,
no.
fine.
No.
Fine.
There's no
Data
Fight
put
Island.
the ideas
There's
out there.
Data Fight Island.
It's not happening. Not happening, fellas.
That's a good reference.
So-
Good reference.
So why don't we go back to a time in 2021? We were in the midst of a pandemic. You guys had closed your physical location. It was still like a going concern, but you wouldn't allow people into it because you have a number of people with various levels of kind of risk in terms of kind of the pandemic that was going on at the time. And you were trying to figure out what you were going to do. You were on Moby at the time, and you're trying to figure out like what's the next thing that we're going to do. And that's when you came across me. So why don't you tell the folks how you found out about me, if you remember?
I don't remember exactly what it was that prompted us to get a hold of you, but it must have been some sort of conversation about point of sale systems. And we emailed you and you said, grab some time, which I always thought was a really cool way to say, hey, I got a couple minutes, but I don't have all day. But I think maybe that's the default setting for the program you were using to have us grab time from you.
Grab some time.
Yeah. Well, also, I had learned very, very early that time zones confuse me greatly.
Yeah.
And so one of the first meetings I had, the dude like was not there. And then 3 hours later, he's like, because I just thought he no-showed. And 3 hours later, he's like, hey, man, why aren't you at this meeting? You said it was going to be at 1 o'clock. And I was like, oh, 1 o'clock.
Which is why in all of our scheduling for these things, you're always very good at designating time zone.
Oh my God.
Like
well,
today you did it. Yeah.
I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I speak in time zones now.
So
yeah,
we met with you
my
at the
schedule
right
thing.
time zone.
Yep.
And we just kind of laid out what we needed, and you laid out what you were working on, and it all sounded like it was going to be a pretty good match. And we liked you. Like, I think instantly kind of bonded.
Yeah, I think so. Django had originally, because we were needing a point of sale system in our store. Movie was on its last legs. So Django had gotten a word about Brian somehow and grabbed some time with him. I wasn't there for that first meeting, but over the next couple of days, Django mentioned it a couple times. But what was more interesting was that he would mention that, like, oh, I've been talking to that guy, Brian, about, developing a thing, or maybe the risks of developing. I think it was outside of me and our good friend and employee developer, Dan Brooks. I think Brian was the first person that, like, Django was letting into an area of his brain and actually taking someone's word with value, because I think he saw the strengths of Managed Comics. So it was very interesting to, have, and actually probably if that hadn't happened, Django wouldn't have started building a point of sale system, because he wouldn't have had somebody to kind of goad him into it. So we'd have a very different life if it weren't for our competitor.
Well, and I think you were at that first meeting, because
Was
I
I?
distinctly remember meeting you. Yeah.
Okay.
You were just really stoned, I think, is all.
It was
But
a
you
long
were
time
definitely there. Yeah, it was.
It was
Yeah,
the pandemic,
4 years ago.
probably. Yeah.
But yeah, you guys were both there, and I just liked the vibe that I got off you. And I remember I reached out to Django fairly soon after that, and I was like, listen, this is what we're actually building, because I hadn't told you guys really what we were building. And at the time, we had decided we were going to go all in on Shopify, and we're going to build like a point of sale interface for their point of sale. And so I said, here's what we're building. We think it's going to take us, I don't know, I said like something ridiculous, like 6 or 8 weeks, which is dumb. And then you got back to me a couple days later and said, listen, can we talk? And we talked, and you said, I think I'm going to build my own. And I said, cool. Can we still be friends? Literally said, like, can we still hang out? Like, because I like what you're doing. Because
And I'm sure you thought, you lunatic, there's no way you're going to do this.
Oh yeah, this is going to fail terribly. But I said to you, like, I had originally offered you a free beta, and you would be like free forever. I'm like, you if you want to do this with me, like you can be free forever. And you're like, I think I'm gonna build my own. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's talk, because there's a ton of challenges, and I think you're somebody that I can actually bounce them off of. Because the scary thing about this industry is, as many people as are in it, there are a handful of us who actually speak both enough technical language and enough like comic book knowledge to kind of marry those things together.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of people who can kind of talk at different levels of the stack, but there's a few of us that can actually like kind of speak throughout the stack. And so, yeah, it was just great to meet somebody that was kind of like that. And you like whiskey, and you're like, you want to do like a whiskey chat every now and then? I said, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. So much.
Good old pandemic days.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that kind of
whiskey and Legos
began the legacy. But I mean, I'm speaking just to like meeting you and feeling there was something in common, and just to the other listeners and people in this chat. Like, I think that's one of the really cool things about the comic industry, or ComicsPRO as an event. Just the ability to meet people, and the more people from within the comic industry I meet, the more there is that just like unsaid connection, or like finding your tribe, you know, to a certain extent. And if you run or own a comic shop, you immediately have more in common with me than I have with most people, which is such an interesting thing. And that 2021 era was sort of right around, I was like halfway into my time at the shop ish. And that was right as I was starting to come out of my shell a little bit because of ComicsPRO. And yeah, it was a very, very important, poignant thing in my life.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to fast forward a year after we met you to get to kind of the birth of Comet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was Pittsburgh 2023, which was the first time that we ever met in person.
Mm-hmm.
The three of us.
And I put Hot Pockets in my hands. I put hand warmers just so I would have an uncomfortably warm hand when I finally shook yours. And I don't know if it translated, but I still think that joke's got there's something there.
He planned that for days.
It didn't really work on me, but there was something there. And it was only when you told me that you had done it that I was like, this guy's funny. That is great stuff.
Yeah, you got to point at your jokes sometimes.
My favorite thing was meeting you guys in person and just being like we had known each other all of our lives. Like there was no beat, there was no awkwardness. It came up, we all hugged each other, and there's like, yeah, we're best friends.
That's Jeff right there.
Yeah.
He salutes people with hugs.
Yeah, there's a pretty good video of our first meeting with Brian hugging me into a lay down on a couch. It's pretty good, but it's been very, very awesome to get to have a legitimate professional reason to need to get into the data and the nitty gritty of the comics industry, which is one of the reasons that we love to do this podcast, the Data Bros, and why I think it's been beneficial, hopefully, for the whole industry, because I think we both got great point of sale systems, but it means that our heads and waists are always deep in the data.
I love that Kyle says, I do not believe that was your first in-person meeting. I refuse to accept that headcanon. One of my favorite things was at the end of the week, we were sitting down with Stu, and we'd all had a couple beverages. And are we? We're 8 minutes in. And I said, Stu, it was so great to finally meet you in person. And he goes, no, we've met in person before. And I was like, no, this is the first time I've ever met. This is the first ComicsPRO I've ever been to. And he just goes, feck off. He's like, we've never met. He's like, no, dude, we've never met.
You're an easy guy to hang out with, man. Yeah. You're an easy guy to hang out with.
Yeah, that was fun. It was so great. Yeah. So that week led to Comet happening. And we had been talking for quite a while about just the data challenges that were happening with, all these disparate publishers coming in. There was, or distributors, I should say. There was Lunar, there was Penguin Random House. Everybody was doing things a little bit differently. Diamond was starting to lose their stranglehold that they had on data. And for literally decades, data was governed by, the way Diamond did it. And it was not great, but it was also not bad, which people don't give enough credence to not bad being good. It's like, so
it was workable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that started going away, we realized that there was a need, and we had talked with our friend Katie Pride and Jessica Wells, from Penguin Random House. and we were just like, you know, we need to do a thing with this. And so we all decided, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And in that room was Django, myself, Stu Colson from Comic Hub, Jeff, Katie, and Jessica Wells. And we like sat down and decided what we were going to do, how we were going to present this thing.
The grease named Jeff.
Yeah.
One thing that I loved that both of you were kind of verbally taking into account with a lot of the things that we were discussing, like the data problems, because when there are like series codes or data problems and you get that in your comic shop, it can take you like 5 to 15 minutes to get it, you know, fixed and sorted out. And never does that feel like this prohibitive amount of wasted time. But both of you, like separately and at the same time, were processing that as like, this is 15 wasted minutes, but every store has to be doing that. 15 minutes times several hundred stores equals this amount of wasted time and the money involved in that. And, you know, that both of you were thinking about it in that way. And Brian, I think you'd even put like a dollar value to it, which is, you know, that really unlocked something in my mind, because with comics, there's always just like little things that will go wrong. But when we can actually start getting further up the stream to be able to fix some of these things that will affect hundreds of stores, that's where, you know, like the need for a Comet is so important. And, you know, the fact that both of your guys' brains were looking at it from that perspective, I think is a huge amount of why the momentum for it was gained.
That 15 minutes can give a retailer the time to put up a Facebook post that they wouldn't have had time to do before, 100%. Or invent something that converts to profit for their shop. Where
bag and board 100 boards.
Yeah.
15 minutes. That's all we need.
That's it.
Yeah. And one of the things I liked about Django right from the beginning was that he was thinking bigger picture. It wasn't just about what the data could do for us individually. It was what the data could do for the entire, you know, ecosystem. Not everybody that was in that room that day was thinking that way. There were some people that wanted it to be very proprietary, and they wanted to kind of federate the data out. And we were very much like, no, this data should be free. And all it really needs is standards. If it had standards, it could be free. And then it would be it's a much better ecosystem. So yeah, we were on the exact same page, to the point where there may or may not have been some back channel conversations going on while Django and I were sitting next to each other via text that were saying, I don't know if I'm going to be here, dude. I might be walking out right now.
But we pulled it all together thanks to that guy in orange down there.
Exactly. Thanks, if it wasn't for Jeff, honestly, and I've said this a long time, if it wasn't for Jeff moderating and like really kind of clarifying a bunch of stuff that we were just too in our own butts about, I think we would not be where we were. So Jeff, to me, is like the unsung Comet founder.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, I come from a background of parents who were school psychologists, so that's all there, but also like music and loving music and music history and like DIY ethos. So we're sort of, you know, like that data and, you know, comics, all of that should be like Fugazi, like build it in your place and get it out there for free. Like share this thing. If it's going to be good for people, we shouldn't make any barriers to it. And so it's been wonderful to see so many people get in step with that and work towards it.
That was the coolest thing, is that weekend we had our panel, and I honestly expected 16 people to show up. I thought 16 would be a massive success. And that room was full. There were 88 people in that room. I counted them at one point. Like, it was full. Yeah. There were people standing at the back, and I was just shocked at how many people were there. And then more importantly, how many people came up to us afterwards and were like, I want to be part of this. I want to volunteer my time. You know, the Comixology people came up and gave us their data model and just were like, here's what we were doing with Amazon. And this is the data we managed to get from every shop or every publisher. And it wasn't hard. It was just so cool. Like that there was such appetite for this thing at the time.
And I think we've made big strides, even though we don't have like final Comet files and things from everybody. We've got a document, we've got the standards, we've got like a lot of it is in place. And through those conversations, I think that data has stayed a lot more stable than it would have if we hadn't been meeting with, and like literally in the same Zoom call with the people in charge of this stuff from Marvel, Lunar, Penguin, Diamond, DC, Image, like all these major stakeholders, large retailers. It was such a collaborative experience. I think we have something really good, and I think everybody involved is kind of working through the nitty gritty of releasing these files and ingesting these files, which is
it's been really cool to look at from the outside and see these two. And then also a big shout out to Katie Pride, who's been a huge help as well. Yeah, it's cool. And I love when people volunteer their time because they understand it's for a greater good. Again, shout out the comics industry. High tides raise all boats, or whatever the correct version of that is.
Rising tide.
Pretty right.
Yeah.
Pretty tide.
Dylan.
TJ James has a great comment here. I've been trying to determine, since Kyle exposed me to Comet Standard, how the data can be useful to the average collector. That's a great question. So the way I see it is, and Django, feel free to jump in and correct me when I'm wrong, inevitably. The way I see it is like, it is really more meant for the retailer level to kind of make everything consistent. However, having things like consistent series codes means that we can actually identify individual volumes. When DC was doing things kind of outside of the Comet Standard, they were doing things using family codes, which totally made sense to them. But there was literally a month where there were 4 Titans #1s, and one of our Comet standards is a series can never have more than one #1. So if you have a second #1, that's a whole new series and needs a new series code. So it's little things like that help you identify volumes.
Yeah, as how it affects the collector, like Brian said, a lot of it is the data for retailers. But as a collector, if you have ever gone into your comic shop on a Wednesday and expected to see something that wasn't there, or been subscribed to something and for some reason it didn't show up, there's a really good chance that happened because of some error in the data and how the series was identified by the retailer to order. Is one example of it. Another would be if you've gone into the comic shop and found something in your file you didn't want, like maybe annuals, if you had specifically said you don't want annuals. But a lot of times annuals would get added to the series codes of things, which are a different thing entirely. So there's just this wealth of small things that can go wrong in a comic shop, and all of that affects the collectors that come in there. A massive shortage on something meaning that you get a second print when you really prefer first prints. All of that is the sort of trickle down of how it affects the collectors.
Yeah. So that's kind of the Comet Standard and the secret history of the Data Bros, right?
Yeah.
And I think adjacent to that, we were talking earlier today, if you guys are ready to move on.
Yeah,
sure,
buddy.
Yeah.
About surprising subscription numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to move on to like the next episode?
Oh, we do.
That's like a whole other episode, dude.
Oh, all right. I'll stop driving.
Yeah. I'll let you drive in a minute. Let's just wrap this bad boy up before we get there, though. I like where you're going. One of the key things that kind of is related to collectors is the barcode. And fairly early on, I realized just by accident that not a lot of people understood the anatomy of a barcode. And so I spent a lot of time creating what Jessica Wells likes to call my TED Talk on barcodes, which I've given 1,000 times now. And
it's my favorite, Brian.
I have literally broken a barcode down into exactly what each one of these pieces means, and why they're important. And why I'm so passionate about this is because during COVID, we lost a lot of people from the comics industry on kind of the senior tier who knew this stuff innately. So the gentleman, and I won't use names, the gentleman that was at DC who knew this stuff like the back of his hand was removed from DC and as part of the Warner Brothers cuts, and a new person came in, and there was some struggling in kind of catching up to speed because there's some institutional knowledge that you take with you when you leave a company.
It's so
the same
much
thing
to think about.
Yeah, the same thing happened at Boom. The same thing, like we recently saw when Philip left Boom, massive things were going on with their data at Penguin Random House because they just lost some institutional knowledge that they just didn't have anymore. So having ways of communicating this and with this standard, we make it a living document that everybody can just access. And suddenly, that institutional knowledge is now just part of your training. It's not, go talk to Bill and find out how we build barcodes, because he's the only one in the building that knows it. And heaven forbid that Bill gets hit by a beer truck one night and now nobody knows how to build a barcode, right? If there's a living document out there that they can use, to me, that's like the biggest part of our legacy, is that we're leaving behind stuff that can be used as training material in the future.
And I guess to TJ's question, it's right now, not every store calls cover B a cover B.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's cover C, sometimes it's cover F, and Comet helps with that as well. So if you're buying stuff from multiple stores and you say, subscribe me to cover B, if everybody's using the Comet standard, then they've got a good chance of all getting you the same book, which is the one you wanted. Like slightly more dialed in than just series codes, and it spiders out to everything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, cover B is a good example, because I think most of my customers are getting cover C's for certain publishers, and I won't name names, but they actually have an ABC's book that I've tried to encourage them to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Great
was just
question
going to shout out
here.
this
Has
question.
there been any real pushback about Comet, or maybe apathy? I don't think there's been pushback. And really, like the thing about this was it was created with the input of over 90 stakeholders, which included retailers, publishers, distributors. We had Marvel and DC in the same room talking about fairly sensitive internal, decision making that goes on. And the deal was that we could never say who was saying what, but it was pretty cool to be in those rooms with like pretty important people who were making decisions about data.
And just like to your point earlier, where, you and I are kind of seeing things from two very different points of view. We've got the data and we've got the stores. That also gave us sort of a point of view from up here, which is the publishers and the distributors, and so some of the workflows and the data, the reasons that they do things that are weird to us. Once we started digging into that, like I found out some stuff that I never even considered. Like sometimes accounting is based on barcodes. So that's really interesting. And now I know not to complain about that specific thing because they're using it in a way we never considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. Well, guys, I think that is a tight 30 right there.
That is a
really
tight
30. If there's two things the Data Bros are known for, it's a tight 30 and a regular schedule of release.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this particular episode. If you just stick around, we're going to take a brief commercial break, and then we'll come back with our next episode, which will be another tight 30.
Hi, I'm Carrie, Chief Juice Logician here at Murphy's Apple Juice, and I want to tell you about a very important podcast, The Data Bros. Finally, a show that dives into what really matters: beverage ratios, orchard yields, carbonation curves, and optimal apple pulp density. I mean, why wouldn't a podcast care about juice analytics? Each week, the Data Bros squeeze out 30 juicy minutes of insight. So if you love apples, metrics, and extremely niche podcasts, subscribe to the Data Bros today, because data, it's in the juice.
Murphy's Apple Juice. It's not the taste, it's the shape. But it's also the taste, which is pretty darn good.
Coming to you from top secret field offices worldwide, these brave men and women fight a battle for truth, justice, and good, clean data. These agents of change make up the Bureau of Records, Objects, and Standards. They are the Data Bros.
Oh, Hi there. I'm Django from the Data Bros. We've been waiting for you. I'm waiting for my bros. I'm sure they'll be here any minute.
Hey, bud. Sorry about that. I was solving world problems. I'm back, though. God, was that scary for you?
So glad to see you. So glad you're back.
Thank goodness. The ship
Laughing
captain's
so
here.
hard. I can barely breathe. That was ridiculous. That commercial totally freaked out my cat. Well, that's not good. We don't want to freak out cats, folks.
Sounds like Murphy's to me.
To Adam Freeman for contributing to the Murphy's Apple Juice Data
gosh.
Bros saga. Love that guy.
Folks, if you enjoy a good yarn, you should go back to the early days of the Data Bros and really listen through. And I think there's an episode that is just so if you go to databrosinc.com, there's an episode that is just the entire Murphy's Apple Juice saga so far. And I really need more time to continue that story because I have it mapped out for like 68 episodes.
Mapped out? I thought it was real.
It's happening in real time, but he's been journaling it for the last couple of years.
That's what I mean.
Organizing
I've got voice. Yeah. I got voice. Oh, and REKCAH. Man, I really want some Murphys now. REKCAH is the genius behind the actual song.
The earworm.
Literally it haunts me every night. I go to sleep and I think you put it in your mouth. And
your wife loves it, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, she loves it.
Shout out to Murphy's Apple Juice for being an official sponsor of the Data Bros. And if anybody else is interested in sponsoring the Data Bros, it is a very interesting bed to be in.
You know, we've had a couple of other sponsors come out a couple times, and they've never really had the staying power of Murphy's. And I think it's because, Big Apple has got a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We had Meat Cute for a while there. That was the meat alternative. And they only lasted for like 2 episodes. I can't remember. There was another one that we had.
Was it Unico?
No, we didn't.
Was it cashhousesgold.com?
We did have those guys. Those guys were suspicious.
The people that were giving us heads up on new series that were coming out that always seemed a little bit dated.
Comico.
Yeah, Comico. Yeah, they were pretty good. Yeah.
Unico.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
A lot of sponsorships going on in the Data Bros.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. But that's not why we're here to talk to you. We're not here to talk to you about sponsorship. No. You can write us privately about that. We're here to discuss something very important.
We will take any amount of money, though. There's no amount too little.
Yeah, actually, Jeff-Figley at Jeff-Figley on Venmo.
Yeah.
If you
there you go. You do it.
Gets right to the Data Bros. Honest.
Yep. Yeah.
By the way, fellas, tonight's beverages have been. Are you familiar with the whiskey sour?
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Are you familiar with the amaretto sour?
Yes.
Have you ever met its cousin, the amaretto whiskey sour?
Oh
I'm never drinking again.
Yeah, that's a good choice. And then we've got, for this episode, we've got the old fashioned, which you just got to class it up sometimes.
Also classy. You guys want to talk about subscription stuff?
Yeah, I want to talk about comics, you guys. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, let's stop this nonsense about data. Let's just talk about comics.
No, it's all in there.
Comics data. So we were talking earlier today amongst the 3 of us about surprising subscription numbers. So Jeff and I own a comic store in Bellingham, Washington. Brian has Earth 519 online. He's in London, Ontario, in Canada. And somehow, within a day, without even communicating this to each other, both of our groups were surprised by our King Spawn subscription numbers.
Shocking.
Jeff and I were talking about it in the car yesterday, and you brought it up today.
Yeah, it's so funny that we talked about the same thing.
But it did beg the question of it's got a really solid subscription number in our store.
Super solid.
And, for a book that is sort of a tributary of a series that's been coming out for so long, it is not often that they have a readership number that stays so consistent and locked in. And as Django and I were driving around, and he was driving me around like Miss Daisy while I was hanging out in the back trying to not throw up more on my shoes, we were sort of talking about when Todd McFarlane had pitched that idea of once a month, there's a Spawn book. We're going to have 4. It's going to be the year of Spawn. What a brilliant truly brilliant that was, because it quadrupled the amount of Spawn books that were coming in and then being sold. And Spawn, fortunately, has a really reliable locked in subscriber amount. So it got us thinking about what are some of those other books that come out that surprise us on their success, or when you're counting on a Tuesday or whatever, you're like, wow, I'm really getting this. This is too much. And then you realize at the end of Wednesday that it's sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think everybody was taken by surprise by absolutes and ultimates, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
for sure.
that kind of blindsided all the shops. And also I just stepped on whatever you were going to say, Brian, and I did it again. So
no, I was just going to say, folks, if you're listening to this right now, drop in the comments. What are your surprising, the titles that you're always shocked about? And I'm not talking, your Batmans or your Spider-Mans. Everybody's going to sell a lot of Batmans and a lot of Spidermans, but what are those kind of backlist titles that you're like, wow, I'm consistently selling, 1 out of every 4 of my customers blank title? We'd love to hear what yours are, because I think ours are always shocking to us internally. And just talking about them, it was funny how many of them were very common for each one of us.
Yeah. So unlike our last episode, feel free to really be a part of the conversation. We do want to hear the ideas and things that people are dropping.
We wanted to hear you last time too.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So one book that sort of shocked me in terms of how many I was selling, especially relative to the series that it's based on, were Storm and Rogue. Both of those books are books that are coming out, and obviously we've got a kind of reliable X-Men number, and then usually when you get a mini series based on characters from that, unless it's Wolverine, you're probably going to be selling less than that X-Men number. And what is kind of astounding to me is that Storm and Rogue of the Savage Lands would come in and be at and sometimes above our main X-Men series across the different covers of it, which is a really interesting, retailers have mixed feelings about the numbers of covers that come out for comics. And I think it's easy to assume that it's just a negative thing. But when the publishers are able to lock in on a character or a series that can really benefit from multiple covers, it ends up, I think, working in our favor. And Storm and Rogue, Poison Ivy that's a great one. Yeah. We sell a ton of alternate covers of those. So that one is interesting to me, and I can go out and kind of paranoid brain try to think of the reasons why that's as successful for those series as it is. But that's one that shocks me in my store. Brian, how long have you been running the shop now?
9 months. It's 9 months this month. This is my 9th month in business, which is amazing to me. It's shocking that it'll be a year in like a quarter.
I just want to pick your brain about the changes to manage comics that have been implemented since.
Oh my God, dude, so many, and so many of them are just like subtle little things. Like just this last week, we added a highlight to the and Stronghold Collectibles. This is Christina or man, I'm so bad with names, but either her husband or Christina. It's one of the two. Anyway, we added a little like icon for multiple numbers. So if you're getting 2 copies of something, we added like a little icon. And on the print sheet version of it, it puts an attention, ATTN, and then that next to it, because we print our pull lists out, and then my kids, one of them's not even my child, but anyway, my 2 helpers that help me out actually physically read paper, right? And so having that print sheet have a little bit different icon was really important for us, because they were screwing up all the time.
Yeah, that's those benefits of like building POS systems while running a shop allows you to see all of the things that are needed within there. So yeah, like those things to overcome pull blindness is what we refer to it as.
Yeah, exactly.
Is an important thing. But yeah, what are some series that exceed your expectation monthly when it comes out?
So like Storm and Rogue are about half of my X-Men numbers, but across all covers, Rogue was par with my X-Men numbers, which is bizarre to me. Storm is about half even with the multiple covers. But the one that always shocks me, like all the Spawns are surprising. Like we sell 7 more copies of King Spawn than we do Spawn, which I don't understand that one.
That's wild. That's the opposite of what Stronghold is mentioning right now in the chat.
I was just reading that.
Yeah.
The one that I love and that shocks me every time is like all the Ghost Machine stuff. We sell way more than I would expect.
Totally.
We're selling 18, 20 copies of Rook Exodus.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the weakest of all of them, and yet it sells really, really well. And those are a higher price point than most books, because I think they're a $4.99 cover point. Maybe they're
how about
could be,
how about the EC anthologies from Oni?
Very surprising. Yeah,
those are ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, where like the number of series that there are for them, ordering comics for 12 or so years, you do just kind of create a paradigm for attrition and, you know, diminishing returns on multiple series and stuff. And this one defies my expectation that I would assume that I'm going to have some drop off between them or as a new series comes out. And I have found myself selling out of my initial orders for those pretty regularly because that attrition rate doesn't seem to be there. In fact, they are continuing to turn on new fans while having that sound base of the people who were subscribed to the previous ones.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I think the one thing to note too about the Ghost Machine stuff is I've seen 0 attrition on that. Like it has been solid all the time. I've never, we've had solid numbers since day one.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really, you know, another one that shocks me every month, even though it shouldn't at this point, is Something is Killing the Children. And we sell about as many B covers as we do A covers. And I think that's because the B covers have been pretty consistently Jenny Frischen, if I remember right.
She's got a big fan base, yeah.
She does.
Yeah, that was always kind of a little bit shocking.
It's super interesting because, you know, I mean, not to go too deep in the retailer griping stuff, but like, I don't know how we discover that these things sell as well as they do. And I don't know how well they would sell if we were, you know, showered with extra copies for the early issues. You know, reprints and stuff help with that, but you can lose some momentum if you sell out. And it's a tricky thing that I don't envy Jeff for doing every week, is deciding how many of something to get to find our ceiling and not waste money.
I want to shout out Nancy and the folks at DC for putting printings of the edition, like issues of the Absolute stuff, the core Absolute titles. They made new printings that are just gonna be available. And that is so excellent, knowing that as a store, I can order more, but I'm not freaked out by too much or not enough. And I can really be much more accurate with the financial needs at that moment. It's wonderful to be able to have additional printings of Absolute Martian Manhunter #1, which has been like our highest selling Absolute book, or second highest selling, which is another one that surprises me because it is so out there. It makes me optimistic about readership to see that it is resonant with so many.
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the more surprising ones, is like that is one of the better selling Absolutes. What I love about those the multiple printings is, even though the trade paperbacks are out of print, I just recently bought like a whack load of alternate printings and just bundled them up as
ketchup
just
bundles
sets. And those are selling really, really well, like way better than they were selling as individual issues. So yeah, it's a really good idea to use those things to get people caught up on the current storylines.
That's a really good idea, Brian. We ordered a whack load of the hardcovers when the paperbacks went out of print, but building your own bundles of those issues because those prints are available is a really smart way that DC can kind of increase the print availability of those paperbacks.
After the show, I'll tell you guys my idea that I've been pitching to some people about ways to keep stuff coming in a little bit faster. It's probably already been thought of, and there's probably a good reason that they don't do it. It might be the accounting department, but I don't have time to get into it right now.
Getting constant prints to give readers is keeping people on single issues instead of collection, which is really, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, totally Stronghold.
Transformers, like they've been, I think they're on like the 86th printing of Transformers #1.
Dude, with a sound chip now. They keep finding ways to make those additional printings interesting to people, which is
But
impressive.
that's another one, like that sound chip. I sold 6 copies of it, which at $20, and I think Canadian it's like damn near 30.
Yeah.
And I sold 6 copies of it, which I was shocked at. We had pre-orders for 4, and then I went in on a couple extras.
So the counter side of that is,
back.
I'm sure that we all have comics in our comic shops that, despite how much we love them or what high quality we think they are, we as a store don't sell as many of them as we would expect. So the 3 of us, the 2 of us, were kind of making a list of like, what are those things that don't sell as well as we would like or expect them to? So Django, do you have any things like that? And then those people in the chat, what is that stuff that is amazing to you that doesn't sell quite as well? Get that insight from other retailers so we can get it and be pushing it as well.
I mean, I think the one that you and I are both huge fans of that, for whatever reason doesn't sell super well, but I think is a very well done comic, is the Dynamite's Terminator.
Yeah. It's weird. I keep finding myself in a conflicted space of like reading a Terminator issue from Dynamite and being like, I think that was really good. And it can't happen again, can it? And now they've got 11 or 12 issues and they're all awesome. And the new mini is going to be coming out from Declan. And like but yes, at the same time, higher than I kind of would expect a Dynamite Terminator to be. Like we have about 9 to 10 that we're ordering and selling each time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, like, it's that one's kind of a mixed bag. Another one that was coming out this year and was recently announced to extend to an additional series is Assorted Crisis Events, or the Papcast, as we refer to it as Ask Cry Eve. 5 issues have come out so far of that. Unlike many other series, that one, as it was coming out, readership was picking up over the first 5 issues, which I'm sure most people here know. Like in general, you can kind of look to rely on some attrition in those first several issues. But even still, with a growing readership, it's a book that we are selling around 15 copies of. And it's truly maybe my favorite comic book that came out last year.
I kind of wonder if other stores had that same pattern. I mean, obviously it did better than they expected since they extended it. To me, that series has felt like the closest analogy to another series would be Ice Cream Man, which I think was initially going to be 4 issues of one-shots, isolated stories, and they just kind of kept going and going and going. And now we're 40-ish, 44, 45 issues in. They're being really playful with playing cards or collectible card games instead of an issue. So yeah, just like the excitement that people can have building that thing, I'm really curious how many stores just didn't get it. Because you and I listen to that podcast, iFanboy, and they've always been kind of mystified by Ice Cream Man. And if it was their store, I don't think that they would pick up readership necessarily.
Yeah, Ice Cream Man is another really interesting book, and I'm glad that you mentioned it in relation to Ask Cry Eve, because it is the most similar type of thing. And while we have, I forget which issue Ice Cream Man is up to at this point, but it's been coming out since before the pandemic, and it has in our store a very solid readership for a book that's that far in, that is all like one-shots. But yeah, I wonder, that's another one I would love to hear the pitch for. I would love to talk to W. Maxwell Prince and just see what was the original intent, for the ultimate arc of that story.
Absolute
chat, Stronghold has mentioned that, Terminator, quality book, put it on the shelf. It just doesn't really move. Power Fantasy, Brian, who is also a huge Power Fantasy fan, and it's also died off a bit. So that's just that. And that seems to be a book that could really kind of live in collections very healthily. Kieran Gillen's got an established name and everything. So,
a couple others that I wish had bigger readership. The main one is probably Feral, which I think is an excellent zombie story starring cats instead of people. But I always felt like That Texas Blood had a really slow start, and I see a lot of kudos for it now in collected versions, but I don't think that it really had the legs that I would have expected it to have and the readership I would have expected it to have right out of the gate.
And so some of those things that don't sell quite as easily as we would expect or have a high enough readership can sometimes be related to some of the obscure or unique ways that publishers and distributors are putting comics out. You know, like unique sizing is something that in the last handful of years we've been seeing way more comics coming out in slightly different size conventions for any number of reasons, whether it's Black Label and Distillery's sort of magazine format where you're actually getting that blown up art, or the DC work in progress issues that they've been putting out just recently of penciled ink pages that are blown up in the same size as the Batman Hush 2 Treasury editions. And all of those are things that can factor into how easily a book sells. So one thing we wanted to kind of reach out to the chat about are, how are some of the ways that you are maximizing your sales with those uniquely shaped books? In our store, so much, and I think this is true of a lot of comics, we're all filling our stores with like the same 25 fixtures.
11-inch tall shelves.
Yeah. So, you know, despite our best efforts, sometimes it can be hard to actually curate a space for those things that are enormous, that have a different sort of shelf life than others and a different collector base as well. And just how people feel about those things, those sizes, and what are the problems that come into it, but then also the great aspects of it.
One of my favorite things was when Black Label first started coming out. Like Black Label really kind of kicked off a resurgence of magazine size comics that, like, I don't think we've seen magazine size comics like that since the 80s, probably.
Yeah.
Before bags and boards were really a big thing. And so it's been fun to see, you know, people doing things like figuring out that they can actually just buy a magazine box, that not everything has to fit in a comic box. You can also put it in a magazine box. And Stronghold Collectibles in the chat is talking about that too. Like, have the bags and boards. People don't like to get stuff that they can't protect. We're in a collector's market. I'm kind of honestly surprised we don't have ash can sized bags and boards from BCW at this point.
That's
like
true.
Bags, boards, boxes, guys. We could probably sell those.
Django did the brilliant thing when the first issue of Last Ronin came in at the size that it was, and he figured out how to cut all of them to be the perfect size. So happy to have Brian back. Shout out to Stronghold. I totally agree. The Massive Verse, we are actually seeing that readership very slowly grow, but it really has like a locked in group, and it is continuing to do well. In the conversation about those oddly sized comics, I think, exactly. The bags and boards are a necessary component. Django and I were just traveling down the I-5 corridor and visiting a bunch of stores. And it was interesting this week. We saw the More Fun Comics facsimile in that large size, as well as like Batman. And what I was seeing was the same damage on all of them. Like, and it has to happen in shipping or something like that. But that's one of those things that those unique sizes are very, very cool. But we also need to find ways to protect them in shipping and transit to be able to live on our shelves. What I would love to see for those really big work in progress books that they've been doing, I would love to see those coming in like a hardback, like a thin hardback, in the same way that they've been doing the Marvel like gallery editions, or, you know, like the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale runs, that oversized hardcover. I would love to get a really tall kind of hardbound version of these penciled page books. So essentially like smaller artist editions and stuff. That's one thing I would love.
Yeah. And if we look back to like what CrossGen was doing a few, like, you know, what's that, 10, 15 years ago, they were doing George Perez kind of artist editions that were at 11 by 17, and they had really nice cardstock. It was the thick cardstock that they use for the sketch editions, and that really held up well when you put it on a shelf. So stuff like that, I think, would make a big difference. And a lot of this, I think, is us just needing to talk to these guys about this stuff is really cool. I hate shipping it personally.
Right.
But it's awesome and people want it. And like that work in progress of Absolute Batman was a gorgeous book. I loved it.
And we got a Frank Quitely one. Hi, hello, my favorite person in all the land, All-Star Superman.
I bought that one, but yeah, I didn't.
I found last night looking around the store because I wanted to build a section to display odd size things. I found in a box of stuff that we bought at some point from somebody a giant Dave Stevens cheesecake poster book.
Yeah, I have that.
And I was like, this is gorgeous. And also it's that cardstock thing. So I could just put it up on a book stand and it was great.
I'll be right back.
It's like we are in a very fun, playful, interesting time with comics because it's not just kind of weirdly shaped things that are coming out. We're getting all sorts of really interesting things, like blind bags are on the rise right now, which is awesome. Or you get comics with a more unique paper stock. And I think that some people consider like the newsprint maybe like a cheaper step down, but there's an aesthetic quality to that I absolutely love. So what are some of the things that publishers have been sending out that are playful that you've enjoyed getting to kind of see in your shop?
I think we have 2 minutes left.
Oh yeah, glow in the dark covers, sound chips, those pumpkin spice variants from DC. But
I'm telling you, I love the newsprint stuff. Like it for me as an older man, I find it easier to read because it's not glaring the way that the shinier paper does, and that's why I found the compact editions were so easy to read, even though it's a smaller font and should be harder for me to read. It's because there's no glare on it. So I think like some more of that kind of stuff. Like when you're doing printing, matte is considered a premium quality print. So maybe we just need to kind of move towards some more matte stuff. I'd love
that newsprint's less likely for my oils to take the ink off the cover and pages while I'm reading them.
I'm tired of holding comics like this.
Listen,
that I don't.
We've run a touch long on this one, but there's two things that the comics data bros are notorious for, and it is a tight 30 and a regular release schedule. So
being on time.
I could continue to talk a lot about the cool things that we've seen coming out of the comics industry over the last year and some of the innovation happening there. I just want to leave it at, I really like it. Keep it up, you guys. I think we would all agree that the first Invincible blind bag was a massive success for all of us.
Yeah, it was great.
And subscribe to our podcast.
Data Bros. You can find it on podcast feeds and stuff. Data Bros Inc.
Go to
databrosInc.com. Do you guys just want to keep going for like another 5 hours and I can go take a nap?
Kyle, how are you holding up, bud? You doing all right?
It's going to be a long 5 hours, boys.
Oh,
but we're going to do it.
You'll never forget this local comic shop day.
Wow.
Oh, it's entirely possible. I could get dementia. But
yeah, that's true. That's true. Me too. Well, thank you so much for having us, Kyle. And we've been the Data Bros, and you're doing an awesome thing here. And we'll get out of your way for the next stuff.
Absolutely, guys. We've had Managed Comics, we've had CSA. Coming up in about 45 minutes time or half hour's time, somewhere in there, we're gonna have Comic Hub.
Yes,
so all the Pete, but
Pete,
Pete.
We're gonna crack the Pete nut these days. There's no way
Pete's accent down.
I don't understand why Pete doesn't love us. It kind of offends me, honestly.
Because we get visibly disappointed when we find out it's not Stu.
Apparently, Stu wanted to be here. Stu really did, but Stu is in India, and we couldn't figure out the time zones.
Talk to Brian. He's pretty good at time zones.
I don't know that I can crack. I don't know that I can crack India. I have not figured that one out yet, fellas.
So, thank you guys for being here. I've wanted to have the Data Bros on the channel for a while. I've wanted to have the Relatively Reasonable podcast or whatever it's called on the channel for a while. I was talking to Brian about doing this, and I kept coming up with different names that weren't quite the actual name of a Comics Place Presents. So
Papcast.
There
Sounds
you go.
Right.
So
how much that makes Django cringe. That's my favorite.
It really does. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you having been here. And thank you for taking part in Local Comic Shop Day with me.
Thanks for
having
having
me.
me.
Love you, Kyle. Love all you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely.
See you in the future.
Right. Yeah, we'll see you guys around.
I'm not going to touch any buttons, Kyle. Make us go away.
All right, good.
Hand check.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue on with our local comic shop day. Michigas is what I'm going to start calling it as I get more and more tired. We are going to take a look at a video from one of our local comic shop partners that has sent in some videos for us to show on the air today. And that partner is, let's go with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We'll be right back after this message. All right, everybody, welcome back in to Local Comic Shop Day here on the EXP. I am your host, producer Kyle. Matthias wants to know how I'm still awake, and I should ask that of him so often. Here's the deal, guys. We are going to jump into an interview that I pre-recorded a few days ago with Hector Rodriguez from Chispa Comics. Hector's here to talk about The Dusk by Alex Segura, which was one of the offerings today on Local Comic Shop Day as part of their partnership with AMP. So everybody check out this interview that we did with Hector. What's up, everybody? Local Comic Shop Day rolls on. Oh, man, we've had so many great interviews, so many great drop-ins to local comic shops. We've seen so many great shops from around the country and the world. It's just been such a cool day, and the day continues. And you know why it continues? Because more people want to come on and tell you about the things they're doing in local comic shops and in the comic book industry as a whole. So I want to welcome in someone who they reached out to me, and they're connected with one of our big sponsors for the day, AMP Comics. So I'm not going to faff around anymore. I'm not going to leave him backstage waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Hector Rodriguez from Chispa Comics.
Hey, awesome, Kyle. Thank you for having me. This is awesome. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
We're gonna start here at the very easiest beginning thing. Tell everybody what Chispa Comics is.
Yes, Chispa Comics is the premier Latino comic book publisher for the direct market. And so we work exclusively with AMP Comics, our partners in crime. And we also have a parent company called Mucho Mas Media, which they are based in Burbank, Hollywood. And they do a lot of great stories, a lot of great movies, Black Demon, Rosario, the horror movie. Also yoga movies like The Long Game as well. And so, and Jenny, which is on VIX. And so, yeah, it's all about, great stories that bring in everyone. And so it's very unique. And so we're excited. We're Chispa Comics, and we have a lot of great books out as well with our partners in AMP. And so, yeah, man. And so we're doing a local comic book shop day And so we're super excited. As you can see, our friend, the Dusk from Alex Segura. So we're excited here to be with Alex Segura. You might know Alex from Dick Tracy and all that. Yeah,
I've been a fan of Alex for a long time. And he's having a moment, man. He's on a hot streak right now. Everything he's touching has been great. Tell us about the Dusk.
Yeah, actually, it's a great character. If follows Jaime Nunez, which he's a ex baseball hero and local lawyer, which is it brings a great twist to the vigilante perspective of a grassroots, somebody that's down to earth within the community, and it's a way that a community leader goes into being a vigilante and deals with the inner workings of city politics and corruption. So it gets into almost like really cool law and order type, but it's very approachable and it's exciting, and the art's fantastic too.
So I like the concept of the Dusk, and it's I like what you said. It's kind of law and order meets vigilante justice kind of thing. Tell us about some of the other titles that Chispa is working on with AMP.
Yeah, actually, we have one of our biggest titles has been Black Demon, which is about a giant megalodon, and it's been terrorizing. It's actually based on a real myth about a giant megalodon, El Demonio Negro, which is it's known, and it has a great twist because it's almost a supernatural kaiju. And so there's some supernatural elements. If you're a fan of creature feature, giant sharks terrorizing. And so in this case, it's something that is deep rooted in the Pacific lore, as well as the Mexican history. And it has some really great narratives which branches the story into the past, into the 1500s, all the way to present day. And so you have different characters. And a really great thing, Kyle, is that, it ties to the movie. You can actually watch the movie right now on Amazon Prime. And so Black Demon, you can watch it. And it has that, it's the guy from Yellowstone, Josh Lucas from Yellowstone.
Very cool. I spent some time in Texas and heard the myth for the first time, and I love that myth. I love that story. I'm also a dinosaur guy, so like.
Oh yeah, dude! I'm a huge kaiju man. Yeah,
right. I'm not a hard sell on that one, right? So you mentioned it at the top, but I want to dive into this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Chispa is a publisher. I don't know if you'd call yourself an imprint, a publisher, how you would classify that.
We're an imprint. We're an imprint.
But devoted exclusively to Latinx comics and stories.
Right. That's 100%. And we also have this really great series called Katrina's Caravan, which is, we love horror stories. I grew up reading, watching Tales from the Crypt and, the old school Crypt Keeper books, and there's nothing like a great horror story. And so in this case, there's a character called Katrina, which is kind of like our Crypt Keeper, and she goes around with her carnival, town to town, telling these scary stories. But within each book, there's an overarching narrative tying the Katrina to a priest that's chasing her, trying to kill her. And so super exciting. And you can actually right now we just announced today that we have a really great distribution, digital distribution partnership with Global Comics too. And so you can check all those books out right now, the 3 Katrina stories, as well as the first series of Black Demon, and of course the Dusk. So
give us the origin story of Chispa Comics. What made you want to start doing this?
Well, actually, so what I'm known for within the Latino community, I'm actually known for this guy here, El Peso Hero. And so this is my independent book, which I'm known for. I've been doing El Peso Hero for about 14 years, about 18 books, nonstop. Basically, it's about a Mexican-American hero fighting cartels along the Texas-Mexican border. And so it's garnered a lot of awards, attention, and so on. And so I was friends with Javier Chapa from which was Leah. And so, I've always been within the independent circuit. But obviously, there's always been opportunities for the direct market, especially when it came down to the editorial leadership, because, we have the talent. Gosh, there's a long history of Latinos in comic books, right? And so, and a lot of them have, broken barriers and doors. But when it came down to the actual decision making editorially, we still have some growth to do. And so our partners with Mucho Mas Javier Chapa was like, hey, Hector, we love for you. And also a partner of mine, David Bowles, which he recently is working on his own works. We launched Chispa Comics. And so within the history of Chispa Comics, we started out with Scout Comics, and we parted ways, and we found great partners reach out to us for all the great stuff that AMP has been working. And so we found it was a great fit.
So what's it like? 'Cause you're the first on the show kind of writer, publisher, and ironically, you and David Byrne, also from AMP, are the kind of two guys kind of wearing that same hat. So as you go out as a writer, how do you look for stories? How do you find stories you want to publish as a publisher?
You're a great question. And so for me, it's something, I grew up, my dad was a comic geek. He would read, Sergeant Rock, Captain America. He was in the military. And so, and I grew up with Mad Magazine as well. And so, something about a comic book, so exciting, right? You open up the page and you're into this new world, right? And so you're putting yourself in the shoes of the protagonist or antagonist or even anti-hero. And so it's something that I look for excitement, something that is fresh with a different perspective. I know that there's the cliche that, all the great stories have been told, but I don't see that way, especially stories that are rooted in unknown history, unknown characters, perspectives. And so there's always a great story to be told, a story with a lot of heart and soul. And so we look into something that is exciting for me. And so, I'll be honest, when I write, I grew up in the 90s. When I write with 90s energy, always trying to grab the reader 100%. And so that's almost in every book that I've written.
Is there a specific, I don't even know how to ask this, because coming from somebody who looks like me, asking this question is a little weird. No, so I just want to preface it with that. When you go out and you start looking for Latinx stories, when you start telling Latinx stories, what are some of the hindrances you face, like in the comic book market? Like, I imagine there are some.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, what we've been told. I mean, we have this great series called The 13th, which it's almost like our superhero anthology, which is based on Mesoamerica and mythology and magic and people born with special abilities on their 18th birthday. So, it's basically what we hear is that the superhero cape books are oversaturated in the direct market. But yes, I mean, they're saturated, but they're saturated for only a certain perspective, a certain type of character, which tend to be, Western Anglo-Saxon protagonists, they're there, right? And so, but heroes that are of Latin origin or bilingual, speak a certain language, and so it's something that is still needs to be. There's a need. I mean, think about it this way: 20% of the American population is of Hispanic origin, Latino, and so do we have 20% of the market based on Latino stories? Probably not. And so there's still a lot of growth and opportunities to be there.
Very cool. Whenever I find myself reading a book that has, like you said, the Hispanic, the Latinx kind of storyline, I always wind up picturing which lucha libre wrestlers I would like to see play these characters, right?
Yeah, right,
and
right.
So there's a connectivity there that I really appreciate, that I don't think we see so much anymore with some of the big name brand superheroes, as it were, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way, Kyle. I mean, I'm a huge wrestling mark myself, lucha libre wrestling, and so one of my first heroes growing up was El Santo, right? The masked silver crusader, and so he was a luchador with a vast history of movies, and so this character was he was an actual hero out in the screen, and somebody you can meet and see wrestle. And so something like that, that came from Mexico. And so you can even say that he was the first luchador to the big screen character of his own anthology of fighting monsters and aliens, and he was a superhero in his own right.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Are there stories that you want to tell that you haven't had a chance to tell yet?
Yes, 100% I do. But see, if I were to tell you, I would go to our slate next year for Chispa, which I'm excited. So,
well, that may or may not be where I'm heading with this.
No, but there's a lot of. I mean, for me, there's a lot of great stories told in history that are just hidden gems, that are, that would, it would be like, it kind of like a, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, but within a historical aspect, War of the Roses, but based in Spanish lore from Spain or from Mexico in its own right, or Latin America, Central America, the Caribbean, right? And so there was a time where the Spanish Empire was the number one military in the world. And so there's a lot of history.
No, I hear you. I absolutely believe that. I was going to kind of push in, because one of the things that I firmly believe about Local Comic Shop Day and about comic shops in general, right? If we believe that the local comic shop is everybody's third place, is people's third place, then what happens tomorrow matters as much as today, and what happens 6 months from now matters as much as what happens today. So right. Are there books from Chispa that maybe you've announced, but like maybe haven't hit solicits yet, or things like that, that people need to be like, hey, let your local comic shop know, like, way ahead of time?
Right. We have this great story coming up, which actually we can talk about, is The Order. And so this is in the ad within the Dusk Local Comic Shop Day. And so The Order is a really cool steampunk dystopian world, and if you like Mike Mignola, I mean, you're gonna love the story, with its artistic essence too, and so it's authored by these great guys. These creators are twins, the Alba brothers, and so they're from Colombia, and so they tie a lot of family, but with a dystopian steampunk twist. And so there's going to be some great variants with some AAA talent involved, which I'm excited. I'm not able to announce yet, but I'll say this: look for ComicsPRO 2026, and so you'll see a lot more.
Absolutely. So let me find my notes here. I'm having a moment.
No, you're good.
Tell us a little bit about it's Local Comic Shop Day. I want to pivot everything sort of back to Local Comic Shop Day, obviously. Yeah. Our local comic shops. Do you remember your first local comic shop experience?
Oh gosh, yeah. And so, see, I for me, well, I grew up on the border of Texas and Mexico, so Eagle Passive, right? And so this was mid '80s, late '80s, and you know, way back when you had the VHS mom and pop stores, right? And so I always recall they always had the little rack of comics, right? I mean, it was mostly, you know, VHS tapes, and you had your Nintendo rentals, your 8-bit Nintendo, and they had baseball cards, but unfortunately, I mean, very small amount of comics. And so it wasn't until we moved to Central Texas, to College Station, Texas, where there was an actual dedicated comic book shop. And I was a kid in a candy store. For me, you know, I was scooping up Aliens vs. Predator, Marvel Comics, Godzilla, you know, from 78, 77, Marvel Comics Group. And each Friday, my dad would take me to Lidl Comics and Games. And so I grew up with Lidl's Comics and Games when I was 8, all the way until I had my first book towards the direct market, Miss Josefina. And so that was a great moment, because I grew up with the comic book shop owner, saw me as a little kid, grew up, you know, buying comics, going there like my second home, right? And so it wasn't until, you know, she saw me in the independent scene, and then I had my first published book from a direct market. So that was kind of a full circle moment. You know, it was 100%. So that for me has always been an experience. And for now, I have kids, and I take my kids to the comic book store, just like my dad used to take me. And so it's, I mean, even though I might have such a backlog, I mean, I still have my bag still in their bags, as you can see. So yeah, so I have, you know how it is. And so, right.
Do you have a local comic shop now?
I do. So yeah, it was, you know, I live in McKinney, Texas currently. And so, you know, I went to college in Denton, and I had my store there, Madness Comics, in Denton, Texas. And when I stick with a store, I stick with a store. It's like hairdresser, right? And so and so it's, you know, you meet the owner, you know, and it's, you know, first basis, and you get to meet the dog, the cat, you know, friends with of course, with the pets. But yeah, right now it's Titan Comics in Dallas with Jeremy. Titan Comics, of course, carries Chispa. And so a funny thing is, even I was an independent scene, and so I met Jeremy when I started working in Dallas from Denton, and Jeremy totally helped me out, because I was I was teaching in Dallas, and so Jeremy hooked me up with a big box of comics to give out to the students. And so I always had that, you know, it's just that very, like, a second home, right?
Absolutely. Jeremy Shore is actually joining us as part of our history class panel for Local Comic Shop Day.
That's amazing.
We have a number of retailers who've been doing this a very long time, just coming to tell stories. So if you missed that, you can go back and watch it here on Local Comic Shop Day live on the EXP. When you go into a shop, and you telling me that your shop is Titan, I know the answer already. But what is the thing that you look for? What do you see when you go into a shop that goes, "This is my place"?
Okay, so I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and so and so I go for the Godzilla books, the toys, and do they have any Bandit Godzilla? So I know it's and so I mean, yeah, it's like I have him like everywhere. So I still got to put my posters up here in this office, but yeah, I go for I go in. It's like I'm gravitated to the books, the latest and greatest for myself. They were rivals, and then I start building my pull list. I'm like, hey, ahead of time, And so I appreciate always the call, the warning, like, hey, Hector, you got to come here. I'm like, no, don't sell. I swear I'm going to go. Like, I'm just, I missed that. I was supposed to come this weekend, but anyway. But yeah, of course, the long boxes, if I have a friend, my best friend, he is into the collecting comics heavily. I mean, he goes into the deep pull box. He'll go to the secondhand sales searching, and so I mean, he's got his own YouTube channel. But I mean, he's got way more comics than I do. But he goes into the freaking storage bin war places. He's that hardcore. But and yeah, so my best friend Steven and I grew up with comics. And you would let us since we have that friendship since fifth grade. So we're going almost 40 years strong.
Wow. We're coming down to it in terms of time, and so there are a couple of things I want to do. I'm asking every creator, every publisher who's on here to do. The first thing is, if you're a fan out there watching, right, give them the elevator pitch on Dusk. Give them the elevator pitch on on the Chispa line, as it were. But mainly Dusk, which is in local comic shop.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. If you're a huge fan of Batman animated series and you wish it hasn't stopped, check out the Dusk, because it has the heart and soul of that. Even with the amazing art, it's very clean, very exciting, and I mean, just expressive. It's about Jaime Nunez, a community leader that is going through a deep conspiracy in the city, doing the best he can for his community as he takes on the mantle of the Dusk. So for Chispa Comics, so give us a shot, because if you like horror, we have Katrina's Caravan. If you like superheroes, we have the Dusk. We have the 13th Origins, which I wrote the first issue of, called Sopilote, which is based in Mexico City. If you like that 90s, like gritty, feel of the old school image too, check out Sopilote. And if you also like creature feature, giant sharks attacking Navy vessels and going all out on the high seas, check out Black Demon Tales. We have 2 series. We have 3 books in the first series. In the second series, we had Black Demon Mechanica, where Black Demon fights a giant mechanical shark. So it's exciting. It's
The other thing I'm asking everyone to do is, again, hopefully retailers out there who have this on in their store, we're in a lot of stores today, are so busy taking money they don't have time to even ring everybody out, and are only kind of hearing this in the background. But if subliminally they can hear what we're saying, pitch the retailers. Tell the retailers why they should be stocking Chispa Comics, and why Chispa Comics deserves rack space in their store.
If you want to open up new venues, especially within the Latino market, especially if you're in an urban setting, a lot of these Chispa books have Spanish words, tied to bilingual. So especially the bilingual schools around your area too, that service majority Latino students. Check out Chispa Comics, because we also will have Spanish versions of these books as well. And it's something that brings folks from all sorts. And so not just Hispanics, but as well as, direct market comic book geek consumers with a lot of exciting titles too, and a lot of these titles are hand selected with to get you the more bang for your buck as well.
You said something there that I didn't know, and I'm fascinated and have to ask about now. When you take a comic book that is written in English, specific, with that kind of intent, and translate it into Spanish, how does that go? Is it generally easy, or does it pose some challenges?
One thing about Chispa is that we give opportunities to different types of writers. We have like a Tejano singing actress, and so, and we have the author that wrote for Aliens, the novelization. Well, it was Aliens books with, and so a lot of these folks will, if there's a Spanish language barrier, they'll break that down and make it feel more organic, right? And so it's one of the strong points of being bilingual, because it's not necessarily direct translation. It's almost like a very natural, organic feel of what the situation calls for and how you express yourself too, especially when it comes down to slang, different terminology, dialects. And so, because I'm considered myself kind of Mexican American, and so especially northern Mexican Spanish is different than Central American, right? And so even Puerto Ricans have their own dialect of accents and their slang, and Cubans and so South Americans, and so a lot of these characters have roots within different types within the Latin American spheres, even within the United States. There could be 3rd, 5th, 10th generation Texan with their own specific dialects. It's very authentic. So we try to fit the dialogue to the setting, regardless. It can be Spanglish, Castellano, Spanish, or just, Pocho Spanglish.
Right. Well, and I ask because, and I don't think this will shock anyone. I learned all the Spanish I know from watching AAA Lucha Libre Wrestling.
There we go, yeah.
So most of the words I know relate to throwing gentlemen around and beating them up. But I can remember reading El Hombre Arana, the Spider-Man translations, and going, this isn't exactly right. Something is off here. So I appreciate the fact that you're trying to make it more organic and easier rather than just trying to just slap a dictionary on it.
No, 100%. And so for me personally, like when I do El Paso Hero, he only speaks in Spanish. I have no translations at all. And so it's all just by how he reacts. And so a lot of connections where he's speaking Spanish and the reader can, tell by the expressions or the reactions of the other character that's speaking English to him. And so, it's that organic way of storytelling. And also, representation of the Spanish language being with the second spoken language, second with English being close second, third, it's somewhere between English and Spanish. It's that very natural feel.
So before we wrap up here, tell people where they can follow you, Hector, follow your work with the things you're writing, and that kind of stuff, and support that part of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on El Paso Hero at Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. You can also follow Chispa Comics at chispacomics.com, Chispa Comics on Instagram, Facebook as well. And if you like your comics on digitally, check out Chispa Comics on Global Comics. If you're looking for the latest and greatest, check out and ask for Chispa Comics at your local comic book shop and visit it and get the special variant this Saturday, the Dusk.
Absolutely. And the Chispa website is very nice. It's actually very easy to navigate and order some books from there, or, again, find out stuff you should have your your retailer be ordering for you. I may or may not have done that earlier today. So with the last minute we have here, and we've been doing this the whole show, but I really want to just take a minute and put a big exclamation point on it. One last big hurrah. Tell the people who are in the chat, tell the people who are watching this one more time about the Dusk and Chispa. And at the same time, guys, if you're around, if you're in Texas, go to Titan and pick it up. Jeremy's got them. I guarantee it. Go to Space Cadets in Houston. Jen's got them. I guarantee it. So what should people, why should someone who maybe doesn't necessarily relate to the Hispanic or the Latinx experience pick these up? Why are these comics for everybody? Because I believe from what I've read, they are.
Right. These are stories that are in characters that relate within a very deep level, either from within Black Demon, Bella Gonzalez, the naval officer, trying to seek revenge from the Black Demon and a bloodthirsty, almost an homage to Moby Dick. And so I remember when I was writing Black Demon #1, I was listening to one of my favorite bands is Mastodon. And so it was, and I was listening to Blood and Thunder. And so while I was writing, which Blood and Thunder is it takes a lot from Moby Dick, right? And so there's a lot of deep-rooted historical homages within a lot of these books. They speak to everyone. These are characters that speak to everyone. And within Jaime Nunez, being that leader we want to be in our community and within our family, that family dynamics as well. He's a divorced dad dealing with his own struggles with his daughter. And at the same time, he gets this unspoken amount of wealth, and he's trying to do what's good with what he can on a very challenging situation in his city. And so these are greater than life characters that are that connect to us at a very human level.
Is there anything we didn't cover that we should have?
I mean, there is stuff coming up in the future that I'm super excited about, but we'll make some great announcements coming up. And so in order for us to keep on making sure we get there, please call your local comic book shop, ask for AMP Chispa Comics, especially support your local retailers, because, without them, we won't be able to do anything. I mean, and there's nothing like having your comic tangible book you can hold. You can buy a collector, you can bag and board, and you can have a reader copy you can take with you, and so it's the time is now, especially, there's a lot of great variant covers too.
Thank you so much, Hector, for being here. I know that, working this out was a little bit of a moment today, but I really appreciate you being here. I'm very excited for the Dusk. I'm very excited for the order you talked about. That seems right in my wheelhouse. So yeah. Very excited for that as well. So everybody stay tuned. There's a lot more local comic shop day coming. We have a ton more guests. Guys, we're going 24 straight. No sleep till tomorrow is my mantra right now. So stick with us. We will be right back after these words from your local comic shop.
life, death, love, and war. Discover unforgettable stories in the pages of the world's greatest comics. From epic battles in the farthest reaches of the galaxy to intimate dramas unfolding next door, comics give us in-depth stories and characters unmatched in TV and movies. Brand new comic books and graphic novels are released weekly, from the best sellers to the critically acclaimed. Order yours today at impulsecreations.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are still rolling along here on Local Comic Shop Day. Has anybody counted how many hours we've been at this yet? I haven't. And if you tell me and I just fall over dead, it's your fault. Our next guest is someone who, when I met them, we instantly clicked because, as it turns out, we have the same CV, almost identical in a big way. They came from broadcasting and worked in the comic shop. I came from broadcasting, working in a comic shop. They got out of they got out of broadcasting for a minute, worked in the comic shop full time. I did the same, and now we're both back to broadcasting and doing other things amongst that. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in my good friend Pete Kilmer.
How you doing, Kyle?
Good. So before everybody goes like, okay, Kyle just brought in his buddies. You work right now for one of the biggest players in comics, someone who is actively saving the industry in Comic Hub.
He's trying. Stu Colson's trying. The guy is a visionary. Back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, he started seeing that the tools we had in the comic shops at the time, because Stu Colson is a comic shop owner as well in New Zealand, saw that the tools that we had at the time, and think back to late 2000s and early 2010s, weren't going to be enough for the mid 2010s and on. They weren't going to be enough for retailers. They weren't going to be enough for customers who were demanding more and more and more in terms of ordering, in terms of being able to order, and in terms of being how they order things. So he developed Comic Hub to help address all of that, and it's been a game changer for a lot of stores.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would agree with that. I mean, Comic Hub, in a big way, I think it saved a lot of my friends' stores.
I can attest, in my case, with Downtown Comics in Indianapolis, we started using Comic Hub probably 4 or 5 months right before lockdown. And when we got the word no more in-store, we kind of, like everybody else, was going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And then, because we were only 4 or 5 months in using Comic Hub, we weren't using it to its full capacity. We then realized, oh, wait a minute, we've got a website. Oh, wait a minute, customers can order things. Oh, wait a minute, let's do an inventory of all 3 of our stores and get it online. And, people had money to spend because, they weren't going out to eat. They weren't doing a lot of things, but they wanted to read. They wanted to keep their imaginations active. They wanted to be enthralled with stories. And so we really pivoted into getting all of our inventory online as quickly as possible. And that saved our business. No question.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people with similar stories. So for the novice out there who doesn't understand what Comic Hub is, like, we talk about a POS system, we talk about a point of sale, but can you explain to me, like I'm 5, what Comic Hub is?
So there's 3 levels to it. There's strictly a POS version of Comic Hub where you have it right there on your desktop, and that's going to be it. That's what you're going to do your ordering with. That's how you're going to handle your customers, and it's going to be like you had it, but more powerful version of what we had pre-2019. There's a second level to Comic Hub that is the point of sale system, but it comes with the customer app, and customers can now place their orders. Whatever they buy from a Comic Hub store is now stored in their history, so they can see, hey, did I buy Batman 160? They can pull up their Comic Hub app and look, oh yeah, I did, but maybe I want a different cover. So that's level 2. Level 3 is all of that plus a front-facing website that allows customers around the world to be able to shop your inventory.
That's cool. When you talk to stores, because you do a lot of actual talking to actual stores about what are some of the challenges you see them facing, and what are some of the things that, again, Stu and you as like an educator kind of person with them are doing to sort of alleviate those challenges?
The biggest challenge right now is getting off an old system that is no longer supported, that the lines of data have been broken with that system. They've been broken for a while, but getting retailers onto a new system and making it as seamless as possible without interruption on the customer end, so that the customers don't miss subscriptions, so the customers don't miss orders. With any store choosing any of the systems out there, of course, there's going to be growing pains and there's going to be a learning curve. I and several other retailers are there to help the new stores get you going on day 1, day 2, and day 3, and day 4, and on. But come day 4 or 5, hopefully you're reading the manual and learning how to do everything. But we've got a very engaged retailer Discord that everybody's there we've all gone through conversion from an older system to Comic Hub, and we can answer questions quickly. Sometimes we don't have time to read the manual, and you get home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and last thing you want to do is study. So maybe you just need a quick answer on how to do something real quick. You can pop into the Discord, and pretty rapidly you'll get an answer to a question.
Yeah, I like that part. Just a second here. But there's this other part of Comic Hub that I think often gets missed by people, which is the ability to go online and go find a product and then find a Comic Hub store that has it.
So there's a master website, comichub.com. Think of it as an umbrella, and all the stores who have their product online are under that umbrella. So if you're sitting in Massachusetts, or you're sitting in California or Texas, wherever you are, and your local store doesn't have Batman 160 or doesn't have JLA Avengers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you want to look for it, you can go to comichub.com. And if the store has it inventoried and it's online, it's going to pop up right there.
I became keenly aware of this a couple years ago. I was out of town. I was traveling for work, and I wound up doing an event with Rodney Barnes, and I needed to get Philadelphia trade paperbacks like in 2 days. So I went to Comic Hub and put in Philadelphia and found every store that was a Comic Hub store within driving distance and went and bought them out. And
now, you know what else you could have done? You could have looked up Rodney Barnes himself and see everything that he's written, because you can get as granular in your search as you want to. You can go by genre, title, creative name, and really dig deep. Whenever there's a convention in town, a couple of years ago, we had J. Scott Campbell in town for one of the indie comic conventions, and we had people coming in looking for J. Scott Campbell stuff so he could sign. Well, I looked up on my store website, look up J. Scott Campbell, and suddenly it tells me everything that I've got in stock, and now I'm able to hand it to the person, you know, ready to buy and ready to get it signed. You can do that at comichub.com on the big website. You can search for any creative that you're looking for. It's really handy and really dangerous because you'll spend a lot of money.
Well, and you can search by character and all kinds of stuff, which again is something I've taken advantage of. Something that we've heard about a lot today is data. And you mentioned it, and you know, I do a lot of work with Brian Garside from Managed Comics, and I'm good friends with Django and Jeff from Comic Shop Assistant. All three of you guys are working towards, you know, Comic Hub, Comic Shop Assistant, and Managed Comics are all working towards the same goal of helping people to sell more comics. Yep. But one of the things that we struggle with is a very, very messed up data set. You know, when one company controls all the numbers, then the numbers don't actually exist.
Not only that, it's looking at, because I deal with a lot of the older data of Comic Hub, of Diamond. The data from 2000 to call it 2018 can be, and I'm trying to be nice, can be inconsistent, which is no fault. And I'm not slagging Diamond, and I'm not slagging the IT guys who worked on that system, who were overworked, overburdened, and just didn't have enough time to fix things because they were putting out fires. We've seen, and there's been a lot of conversation of getting the publishers to provide the correct data to the suppliers. And if it comes from one source and then it gets distributed to the 3,000 plus stores, that solves a lot of issues. If it's not there, then it's got to get fixed. And you know, we're talking about weights and dimensions of a product, and we're talking of descriptions of a product. And in the 2000s, there weren't too many stores that had front-facing websites selling their inventory. That started to change at the end of the 2000s and into the 2010s. But the previous distributor and other companies were not ready for that. They just weren't. Right. And I think all three systems have really been really good at playing catch up as best they can. Now, even the new suppliers and new distributors, their data is not perfect either, but it's a lot more manageable to fix now than you could even 3 years ago. You know, it's gotten better.
Well, something we've heard about when we've talked with the other guys is the comment standard, which is something that, you know, ComicsPRO rolled out and is you know, kind of trying to set data at least into one sort of framework. Whether everyone uses it the same way or not, they're attempting it. Is that something that Comic Hub is taking part in? Is that something that Comic Hub is working with?
Stu, I know, talks with Brian and Django occasionally. Comic Hub has been really far ahead of where the other guys are in terms of dealing with data, and we're already doing things that the other guys are getting to. The things that I deal with are making sure that product from the 2000s and up to 2018, that they've got the images, that they've got the weights and dimensions, and that it's standard across the board for, say, a Captain Marvel 17 that came out in 2015, that it's going to be the same for me, for you, for every other store that's out there as well.
Right. And that makes sense. I imagine that new data standards, whether they integrate with every POS or not, aren't going to necessarily matter for back issues. You know, that ship kind of has sailed.
True, but it is important in the fact that, there's, call it 2,800 stores, whatever the number is, and more coming online all the time. That whether it's us or Manage or CSA, that data for the back issues got to be correct in terms of shipping, in terms of being able to be presented online. So, that's we all have inventory sitting on our stores, and if it's just sitting there, it's not making any money. And if people can't find it, there's no ability for it to make money. And we all want to make money. We all need to stay open and be able to buy new comics so we can keep servicing our customers and continue to be a member of the community that we're in.
Absolutely. So it's local comic shop day. So I'm asking everyone a couple of the same questions.
Sure.
Do you remember your first local comic shop experience?
Well, I'm reaching an age where it's kind of starting to fade. But my first so when I was a little kid living in Elkhart, Indiana, I would ride and this is the 1970s, I would ride my bike to Hook's drugstore and buy off the spinner rack. And I remember the very tail end of the 25-cent comics. Pretty quickly, they went to 35 cents. And I was very irritated because I was unable to get a grilled cheese and a chocolate milkshake along with my comics. I had to choose one or the other before I biked back home. But my first proper local comic shop was a place in Carmel, Indiana called Rangeline Comics. And shout out to Tom Haskamp, who used to own that, who became one of my customers at Downtown Comics. And that place was a really special kind of place, and so much so that I wound up working there. And so I go back to pen and paper as well in terms of doing ordering. But being welcomed into a comic shop in the 1980s, it's not a small thing to say that it was nice to go into a place where you were accepted and not being made fun of because you were reading comics and because you were playing Dungeons and Dragons. And it was an eye-opening experience for me as a little kid.
Give me the origin story of Downtown Comics, which was your shop.
I came into it about 3 or 4 years after Doug Stevenson and Mike Costello opened it. They were a couple of guys from Purdue University who, along with another partner who retired and went into the world of financial wizardry, opened up Downtown Comics, downtown Indianapolis on Market Street. That's why it was called Downtown Comics. After a couple of years, they opened up a place in north of Indianapolis called Castleton, and then in Carmel and Greenwood, and opened up several stores. Now, ever since then, we've contracted and grown, just natural things. So we've got 3 stores currently, and with a warehouse, with everything in the warehouse online on our Comic Hub website, because it's got its own site. So we've been going since 1993. So we just passed not too long ago 30 years. 30 plus years. Then they're still going through. We've got customers that are with us from the day one that we opened. They might have moved around to different parts of the city and they get transferred to other locations, but they're still part of Downtown Comics.
Yeah, that was the first time I went into downtown. I went into the Market Street store.
Okay.
And it was like, oh, this is dope. This is a great little store. And then I came up to see you at the location you were running. I'm like, oh, this would be my local comic shop. This, they're different while being the same store.
So the downtown shop, because Indianapolis of the 1990s is very different from the Indianapolis of the 2020s. Indianapolis downtown, very business office oriented, very sport. We're big, probably the largest sports city, I would say, in the country, if not the world, amateur sports as well as professional. So we didn't necessarily have all of that in the early 1990s. We had some offices, but Indianapolis downtown certainly was a little more of a destination. You could drive downtown a little easier than you can now. It's just Indianapolis has grown so much. It's just very congested. So it's kind of hard to come from the suburbs to come downtown to get books. So having the suburban locations that we've got now, Castleton and Avon, we're out on the far west side of Indianapolis, allows people to get the downtown comics experience versus, well, maybe I'll drive downtown, but it's going to take 45 minutes and trying to find a parking space. So
God forbid the basketball teams in town,
Oh yeah, in fact, the Indiana Fever are playing tonight, championship game, one of the championship games. And whenever there's a big event downtown, whether it's the WNBA, the NBA, or football, or professional wrestling, whatever it is, the location we have downtown is located perfectly because we're a block north of the basketball arena. We're a couple of blocks from the football arena. We're right off the circle. We've got hotels all around us. So we get a lot of tourism business. Whenever the conventions are in town, and I don't necessarily mean comic conventions, but the Future Farmers of America, whatever convention comes into town and rents out Lucas Oil Stadium or Gamebridge or anything, we're just pounded with people at the downtown location. So that's a little more touristy of a spot, but they've got so many great comics and graphic novels, and we certainly carry in that particular store a little more easier stuff to grab for people who are traveling. When DC came out with the compact line not too long ago to kind of match the Marvel line that Marvel came out a couple of years ago on top of the manga, that stuff sells perfectly for tourists because it's not oversized. It can fit in a bag. I can toss it in the bag or the box and take it home as a little something for the kid at home or themselves to read on the plane.
Yeah, like I said, the thing that struck me is each store still has its own identity while it's part of a big group, which was really cool. When you look at, again, you running a store, what are some of the things that you emphasize with it to go, this is how we make this people's third place?
Customer interaction, the face-to-face interactions you have with people are incredibly key. If you're coming into a comic store, we already kind of have something in common, at least in interest of whatever is in the store, whether it's Spider-Man or Superman or Star Trek or manga or statues or figures. There's at least something there that we can all connect to. And then it's, important to build a relationship on top of that and make feel that everybody is welcome to come into the store and enjoy their particular fandom however they want to enjoy it. There's no wrong way to collect comics. There's no wrong way to read comics. There's no wrong way to collect toys. If you want to open the package, open the package. If you want to modify your statue, modify your statue. But, enjoy your fandom. That's the number one thing.
Absolutely. As you look, because again, you sit at kind of a different position than a lot of people, right? As a retailer, but you also work with Comic Hub, and neither of those things are your full-time gig, which is an interesting kind of spot too. What are you, as you look to the future of comics, what excites you?
I will say what Marvel and DC did with their Absolute and Ultimate lines really brought in a breath of fresh air, taking chances on established characters, or at least established character icons, and twisting them just a little bit, doing something new with them. Because when a new reader comes into the store, and I mean a brand new reader, 9 times out of 10 they want something familiar, and they might not want the mainline version of Superman, but they see this Absolute Superman, and that's interesting to them. Or they see the Wonder Woman Dead Earth, part of the Black Label line that DC does. That looks interesting. They've seen the movies, they know the character, but what's this Mad Max looking Wonder Woman book kind of about? Taking some chances on some of the established characters, I think, is a really good thing to do because it puts the hook into a person of, okay, I can read these comics. hey, what else do you have in dystopian comics? What else do you have in crime comics? Because I'm reading this Absolute Batman. It's really good, but I kind of want some crime stuff. Oh, let me get you Ed Brubaker. Let's try some of the Parker graphic novels if you really want crime stuff. Using the big two as the gateway to other things is, I think, a really good spot to be in to grow a business. The growth of manga. I sound like an old man, but in the 1990s, good luck finding Lone Wolf and Cub. Yeah, they published it in the 80s, but it took a while for Dark Horse to reprint it in the pocket sized. Good luck finding it then. Good luck finding any anime on videotape. Now it's everywhere, and we've got so many kids coming in looking for various manga that they've seen on the streaming services, and so supplies willing, it's there, and they get interested in that, and then suddenly the kid might see a Ghostbusters Street Fighter crossover comic, and hey, what's this? And he goes to read that, and he suddenly wants to read more Ghostbusters comics, and suddenly the Ghostbusters are crossing over with the X-Files, and now he wants that, which could lead that person to wherever they want to go. There's so many genres, there's so many things. The publishers, I think, across the board are all trying something new, even with established characters. They're trying something new because I think a generation of readers changes every 5 years for stores. I think there's a new generation that comes in every 5 years, and doing this as long as I have, I've seen little kids who would come and play Pokemon in my store in the 1990s are now teachers, are now having kids, are now, because I'm very old now, are now their grandparents, and they're bringing their kids and their grandkids in. And it goes back to relationships that we started with them in the 1990s, cultivated with them when they may have gone off to college, but they came back after college. Now they've got some pocket money, now they're working, now they've got kids. Hey, I used to read this book, don't tell your mom, but we're going to read Spawn. It's that I see that all the time, and I'm just I got a chuckle in my head. Or Sonic the Hedgehog is still making, they're still making the graphic novels, and they're selling like crazy, and the family can enjoy them. So there's companies out there that can make something for everyone. It's just it's there.
It's true. And that's so much my own story that I'm sure I've talked about too much on the air. I'm not going to go into it with everybody else, but my grandpa bought Spider-Man, and my dad got into the undergrounds and took me in, and then you promise you'll read it. Okay, I'll buy you Preacher. Don't tell your mother.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've got look, when The Walking Dead was really heating up on AMC television, and everybody in the country was watching it. It was a water cooler show. Everybody was talking about it in office and at work and at school. And there were at least maybe 12 or 13 volumes out by that point. And we're selling it. And I'm going, this is not like the show exactly. The show is, PG-13. This is HBO level. Just be aware, that's right. Okay. My kid can handle it. The kid comes back next week and buys all the Walking Dead books with his dad. So, because they're enjoying it together. So,
absolutely. So let's kind of pivot back a little bit here in the last few minutes. We are going out to a lot of local comic shops around the world today, and hopefully the retailers in all these areas are so busy taking money they don't even have time to ring things in, right? They're in that meme phase where they're just taking all the money. But right. If they could subliminally hear you, or if they're sitting down and listening to this, give them a pitch on Comic Hub. Give them the quick pitch.
Comic Hub will make your life easier in terms of getting product in. The team, with the dissolution of Previews magazine, it's gone. you might be struggling trying to find, okay, how are my customers going to order? Where are the catalogs? Yes, some of the companies are putting out print catalogs. Love them, love them, love them. But Comic Hub every weekend has got a section called Last Call for Confirmed Orders. Customers can log in right before FOC and place those orders for books themselves. And the fact that it's on Comic Hub, we're getting the very latest information that they are dropping on Friday night at 10 p.m. because they just got to the 20 covers in for one issue, and it's got 20 variants. And now that information's been updated. You've got the whole weekend to place that order, and you can do that. The customer can do that themselves if they want to. We help the customers do that in our stores. Some people require a little more help, and Comic Hub makes it very easy. Once you teach a person how to, what's the saying? You teach a person how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. You teach a person how to order on Comic Hub, they're going to read for a lifetime. There's just so much stuff that they can order now that they might not have ever seen, because the previews catalog, once it goes to print, it was locked. Now, the 45 extra items added are now available at your fingertips. So the customer app is an absolute game changer, will increase your cash flow, will increase your orders, and it'll save your business.
Very
help.
cool.
It'll help.
Where can people find out more?
ComicHub.com. That's where you can go to finding out about if you're looking for back issues. If you're a retailer store and you want to find out more, reach out to Stu Colson. You can reach out to me. Stu gives tours. He gives virtual tours on Mondays. He takes you through how it works, how the ordering process works, really gives you an hour's look at everything under the hood under Comic Hub and how it can really benefit you and help grow your business. You'll get as much out of it as much as you put in.
Very cool. Is there anything we didn't cover that we need to?
Having the catalogs at the customer fingertips, I think, especially now, is one of the things that Comic Hub does exceptionally well. The team goes through and Stu has a team of about, oh gosh, I don't know how many people he's got working for him, but the catalogs and all the data that's there gets fixed and gets ready to go and customer presentable in about a day. And once those things go active, your customers start ordering. It's insane. Within the first week that we had Comic Hub, 2 of my older customers who were pushing 70 figured it out and started ordering everything that they normally get. Marvel Masterworks, DC Showcases, and the essentials that were coming out at the time. I had a Marvel customer, until his wife stopped him after 5 years, would buy one of every single Marvel cover. Now, pre-Comic Hub, he would turn in his previews form. It took me 2.5 hours just to deal with him alone on a weekly basis. Now, he just places that order, and I hit accept.
Yeah, that's so cool. All right, Pete, thank you so much for joining us on Local Comic Shop Day, for representing Comic Hub. I wanted to make sure, and it's important. I wanted to make sure that all 3 of the major kind of point of sale, retail management kind of groups were here, because at the end of the day, everybody does want to sell more comics and they all want to help us sell more comics. Mm-hmm. But every store is so different that finding the right choice matters, and having all of those choices laid out in front of them are super important as well. Absolutely. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a retailer. Thank you for your years in comic books, man. Everybody stay tuned. We will be right back with more Local Comic Shop Day. We're going to take a look at a bunch of videos from great shops from around the world that they've sent us, and we're going to have a good time. We've got more to come, and I'm going to just get more and more punchy. Here we go.
Hey, welcome to Beyond Comics.
Beyond Comics, your safe haven in the zombie apocalypse.
Woo! More customers.
I like being a zombie and it still rocks.
It's usually boring being a zombie. Not today. Beyond Comics. We're having a lot of fun out here. My name's Robert, and I'm a zombie.
I survived 2.5 weeks and I just couldn't take it anymore. They got me just before this commercial.
Beyond Comics in Frederick, Maryland. Your haven in the zombie apocalypse.
Sweet. All right, guys. We need quiet.
Once upon a time, long before your grandmother's grandmother was born, a poor broom maker and his wife lived on the edge of a great dark forest with his 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. But things in the forest were not quite as they seemed. There was a witch with a bag of children and a house made of the most irresistible candy. How could 2 hungry children resist such a delicious temptation? Come along now. I'll tell you the story. We'll find out together. Hansel and Gretel, for readers of all ages, available wherever books are sold.
And happy local comic shop day. I hope you're all out snagging some awesome books and hanging out with some awesome people. The EXP is doing a really cool thing, an all-day live stream celebrating all things comic shops, and I'm here with Fred Van Lente, writer of The Future Is and so many other amazing books at Valiant and Marvel and so many cool indie books. He's going to talk to us about writing and comics and some of his favorite shops. So hope you hang out with us for a little bit, tune in and nerd out. The origin of REKCAH is very interesting, and I've heard stories of this van trip that was like a weird road trip brainstorm session.
Right. Well, I don't know if it was weird. It was it was unusual in my experience as having done this since like the mid 90s off and on. I've never done, and I know people do it. Like I know Charles Soule did it with Ryan Brown for some of his titles to do a tour of comic shops, and we specifically went south. So we started at Third Eye in Annapolis and wound up at Blackbird in Orlando, and drove that entire way from Maryland to Florida, which took the better part of a week. It was awesome fun. We went to a million great shops like Neighborhood in Savannah. We went to Ultimate in Cary, North Carolina. We went to a great place in Richmond. We just kind of Johnny Appleseeded along. And because of the previous Kickstarter for The Future Is, we had we had vinyl albums that were the soundtrack to the first issue, and we gave those out. We gave out copies of the first issue, and I signed a bunch of stuff, and there was a concert at the end, and it was super fun. And we did some plotting sessions. We did some story sessions in the van because it's, when you're driving 8 hours to the next Buc-ee's, you know, or wherever you're ending up in this nice van, you know, what else are you going to do? So it was super fun. It was super fun. Not weird at all, I swear. Not culty at all.
What's it like? Because you know, so many people like working remotely, right? But in the creative sector, you do get echoes every now and then of like, I miss being in a room with people. I miss being like physically in a room, you know, feeling the ideas bounce off each other, hearing us laugh at jokes. You know?
I was an indoor kid. I was a sit in your room and read comics and Dungeons and Dragons books kid. So I basically had the life I wanted when I was 10, which is not to say I'm like, you know, like a troll or something, like, you know, anti-social or whatever. I can be charming when I want to be. It's just I don't want to be. Sorry, you were going to ask a much more interesting question, I think.
Well, I don't know if my questions are interesting, but to rewind a little bit, to like, you know, before the van, because you were on my show years ago during the Volume 1 campaign. I talked to you and Jay. That's when I met you and Jason. Well, I met you at Comic-Con. That's when I met Jason. But like, how'd they rope you in? Like, how'd you get into this project?
Through Adam Freeman, who I knew well. He was the sales and marketing guy at Valiant during, you know, when we relaunched in 2012. So I knew him really well. I really liked him. He thought I'd be a good fit for the REKCAH people. Initially, they brought me in because of my nonfiction comics background. Like I did Game Masters, the comic book history of role-playing games, and Action Philosophers, the comic book history of comics, and all sorts of stuff. I think initially they were thinking about doing more of a straightforward kind of either a history of hacking or like real life stories about real life hacking. And we had some meetings about that, and I was sort of kicking around some ideas. But I headed out with Jason Blanchard specifically, and I think he and John Strand from Black Hills Information Security decided at some point it'd be much more interesting to do a science fiction book.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a huge turn. Both would have been interesting.
Yeah,
because your nonfiction works are great. I remember, I think the last time I interviewed you was for the TTRPG book. You
sure.
did. Mm-hmm. And that Kickstarter was doing well when I interviewed you.
The finished book is above my ear there.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah,
nice. But yeah, that's so wild. So do you guys were just having a conversation and you thought, like, marketing wise it would be better to go sci-fi? Or
I was not in the room, so I heard about the decision once after it was made, and I thought it was a good idea. I will confess I was a little leery of, you know, the joke is like, you don't want to have a comic that's 20 pages of people typing on, you know, writing code, you know, it's like, who cares? But so adding the future element, adding the augmented reality element that sort of opened up this world visually to make it a really interesting comic. I think that was a really terrific idea on their part. And then we just had a meeting. They came out here and met with, famously, they call it basement time. Before there was van time, there was basement time. It was in the basement of the great Anyone Comics. Hey, Demetrios, if you're listening, my local shop. They are in Crown Heights, and Adam was actually using the basement there for our offices, and so we met in the basement of a comic book store. And I just listened, and I pitched them some ideas, and I had a deck, and we talked about it, and basically just the back and forth between me and John and Jason and Adam and Nate Cosby, who was the editor at the time. We came up with, I think, a really rich, interesting world.
It definitely is, and as you mentioned, like the augmented reality and the avatars, it makes for very cool like layouts and scenery and just gorgeous panels. And your creative team is phenomenal. You guys are finding like all the hidden talent in Italy. It's amazing.
Yeah. Ennio and Mario, but Mario D'Alessandro and Ennio Buffi are just crushing it. I just approved the inks for number 9 this morning that Mario drew, and they're just fantastic.
Awesome. I'm in meetings with Joe and the other REKCAH members a lot now, working with Adam, and everybody speaks so highly of you, and they also mention how they throw a lot at you. Like these aren't the easiest scripts to write, and sometimes they send you like difficult scenarios. What's that like? Because you have a lot of creative control here, but then you also kind of have to prep for like a jab and a right hook or something, right? That they might show you. Is that ever? Do you think about that when you're plotting, when you're structuring stuff?
Well, I won't show you the voodoo dolls I've made of now. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's there's definitely a bunch of curveballs, but I would say that's really no different unless it's totally creator owned and you're running the ship entirely. That's just, it's the price of doing business. That's just how it goes.
Okay, so you're kind of used to this doing like Marvel work, Valiant work.
Well, exactly. Particularly at someplace like Marvel, where it's like Wolverine's now a woman, and it's like sort of like I was going to pitch this one thing. Nope, you can't do that. Doctor Strange has been magically turned into an elephant and would not be able to fit through that doorway. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll come up with something else then. So you always kind of have to be on your toes. And they're always, sending me like books to read and stuff and articles, and we're trading information. Adam just actually recommended what looks like a really good book that I'm going to pick up via text. So we have the what Deb has dubbed the Van Time chain. So on the Van Time chain, we always the channels are always open, and what's frightening / interesting is that some things like that I thought were kind of crazy actually turn out to be already happening in the real world.
Yeah, right. It's weird how some of the sci-fi dystopic fiction it's not so fiction anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we have an upcoming storyline that's about there's a if you're in tech circles, you probably heard the term Roko's basilisk, which to sort of condense it into its most sane form is the idea that in the future, when AIs take over in the supposed hypothetical future, they will punish all of us meat people who did not help them. Anyone who tried to stop AI from happening will be, punished severely. Ergo, you should do everything you can now, to help AI, because otherwise you're screwed in the very near future. It's sort of a kind of techno geek version of Pascal's rate wager, which is a philosophical thing, which is even if you're an atheist, you should at least try to believe in God, because the consequences of not believing God are going to hell. So if this are so terrible, you might as well just go ahead and do it, which is another something, well, if that's the case, I'm fucked because I haven't been able to make myself to do that. Ditto for Roko's basilisk, which is a long-winded way of me saying, so there's the storyline about this cult that's basically formed around the Roko's basilisk concept. And just a month ago, the New York Times did a story on a cult formed by the Roko's basilisk concept that's already killed a couple people in a couple different states, and the leaders in prison. And so it's scary, it's fascinating, it's exciting. It's when you predict the future, sometimes you're right, even though you really want to be.
We thought AI was our only problem.
That's right. Well,
yeah. I mentioned Joe a couple times, and I said he's so fond of working with you. He's a cool dude to work with, and he's fun to like bounce ideas off. And he's so encouraging, and his like well of comic knowledge is ridiculous, right?
Oh.
And what's it like working with an editor that because he gives a shit, right? He's into it. Like you all like drank this digital Kool-Aid, right? And but what's it like working with an editor like that?
It's great. Yeah, Joe's fantastic. It's very challenging because we're always trying to feed multiple artists. Today I approved one set of inks. Yesterday I approved an excellent proof for a standalone issue starring Arf, our dog hacker. That'll be super fun and bizarre, and it will kind of melt people's brains. And just the fact he's able to juggle this stuff is impressive. What it reminds me of is back at Marvel, I did Amazing Spider-Man when it was weekly, and I was one of the web heads, and all the writers were all sort of moving at different paces because artists move at different paces. So there they had a team of like 3 editors and 7 writers. Now it's just me and Joe trying to keep this train on the tracks. And he's a good man to have riding shotgun with you when you're trying to do that.
I've heard you hear these stories, and about like publishers and people being mistreated and stuff, and even in like the kind of the normative of comics seems to be like, no one responds to emails. Right. The communication is always a struggle. But I feel like with REKCAH, like that, this team is very open and communicative, and everybody knows the production lines, and the meetings are, Jason likes updates and stuff. Is it different like working with this than like bigger publishers, and just the communication lines are so open and freer? Is it?
I guess when I started out in the 90s, I was self-publishing for the most part, and so I'm used to doing everything myself. So having any kind of support from the publisher is super awesome. But I guess I don't need it. I don't necessarily have some of those reactions about people not getting back. I'm also like super anal and efficient, so like I respond to emails very quickly, and I just I think when you do that yourself, people tend to respond in kind. But no, REKCAH's been fantastic. And I think partly that's because they're not first and foremost a publishing company. So they're used to kind of dealing with real-time crises, which is kind of what publishing is a lot of the times. But yeah, they do a fantastic job.
It is kind of like scattering, putting out fires. Adam and I were talking the other day. I was editing one of the CII interviews, and everybody's got like this story, right, where they're like, I don't really know how to do this, but I have a cool opportunity, and if I figure it out, maybe something will come from it. And that's like how you get into comics. Like I got thrown into a deal where I was like, I'm not really sure how to run a design studio, but I'll try. And I did for a couple of years, and everybody kind of gets kind of thrown into something. Did you have any point in your career where you were like, all of a sudden were like, maybe like the water got over your head a little too quickly, and you had to figure it out, but because of that, good things happen?
I've taken some jobs, like I'm pretty arrogant, so I think I can do anything. So I've taken some jobs that I later found out was like, I shouldn't have done this. This isn't as interesting as those. Like the one I always bring up, and it was so cool that IDW offered it to me, but I found out very quickly I should not be the writer of G.I. Joe, because I was just something I was like, I can do this. This is, and I really threw myself into it. But then by the end of my first arc, I was like, nah, I'm not into this at all. This is not my thing, man.
Did they offer that? Like, did you pitch it, or did they offer it to you?
They offered it to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be in the same boat, right? Like, how do you say no? You gotta try,
Yeah. And me and Ryan's Comic Book History of Comics had just sold out. Like, it was a big seller for IDW. And so they were kind of like, well, this guy, did this big book for us. Let's put him on another one of our big books, which I appreciated, but it's like little apples and oranges, That's another case of the nonfiction stuff feeding the fiction stuff. But then you find out, Snake Eyes is dead, and I'm like, what? Why? And I won't get Scarlet because she has her own book, and all the kind of bullshit you have to put up with any kind of continuity thing. And Larry Hama is also writing his own G.I. book. I'm like, I don't, which I didn't know when I was like, I will be the G.I. Joe guy. And it's like, nope. Larry's still doing his book. That's like competing with Jesus at a Jesus convention. It's like trying to do an Elvis cover band when Elvis is performing on stage at the same time. It's like, what are we doing here?
Looking back at your career, which is from your independent stuff to publishers, from superhero to nonfiction, you travel a lot of narrative roads, right? the future is a different kind of animal, right? It's a different kind of sci-fi. It's a different, like we've talked about. It's just it's a different book, right? It looks different. It feels different. How do you get into the mind? Because I feel like you got to kind of get into this like cybernetic cyberpunk kind of, like you have to get in the zone, right? To like to hammer out the dialogue and these, like, you know, these freebooters fighting. Well, I guess we're all kind of fighting for a better future or a worse future if you're a bad person. But, you know, like, what do you do to get in the vibe to these scripts, man?
Well, you know, it's all characters, you know, it's character is king. It always will be, you know. So I just came up with a bunch of people I find really interesting, and a dog. And I just kind of run with it, you know, and they kind of drive the story. And it's always exciting when you discover things, you know. It's always always the discovery, you know. Like a common, you know, question is, well, what characters from DC or Marvel would you like to write? And I'm always like, well, I don't know, because the most interesting projects have been brought to me by other companies that I never would have thought of on my own, you know, to have done it. And that's definitely the case here with Future Is.
You just mentioned you love all the characters and you love writing them, but do you have a favorite? Do you have one that like kind of sings to your inner workings more than the others?
Yeah, I love Martina. I love kick-ass females. I really implanted an Emma Rigg from the Avengers when I was watching the reruns back in the 80s. But they're all fantastic. Martina's probably my favorite. The story that her origin story was the first thing I wrote, so I feel kind of connected to her in that way.
It's a heavy story, right? Like you know, to be like locked away like that, and we've seen it happen. Like this is kind of a joke, but I mean, everybody used to joke that like Tom Cruise kept Katie Holmes locked up in his basement for a long, you know, but you see people like exhort that kind of dominance over relationships, and it happens, and you know, whether the technological aspects of it and being able to literally control what you see, right, is where we get kind of, you know, far into the sci-fi depths. But yeah, that was a heavy deal. And I too, like, I love a strong female protagonist, and I love, like, she's so like sharp, right? I like it that she can shut Wheeler up sometimes, right? You know, she can like exert dominance over the boss, and I kind of, and he loves it too. Like he lets her, you know, because that's what makes her great.
Yeah, and she has that kind of shut up nerd vibe, you know. She's the normal girl on the Munsters, you know, where it's like she's the one non-tech person really who just is not into computers, and I think you kind of need that, particularly if you're going to try to expand your reader base, right, beyond just Black Hills fans and tech folks, and I just think it's a nice, you know, you always want. It's like an orchestra, right, or a band. You know, you need the different instruments playing off each
other. You know, when you first got brought in, they talk about that. They joke about the Bleeding Cool article where they said like REKCAH was they wouldn't make. They were like this idea won't work, and it's crazy. And you guys are, you know. You just said you approved the inks for 9 got approved. 5's in shops. We just saw the Nick Pitara's cover for 6. They're showing that online.
And yesterday I approved the finished issue 19. So we're quite far along.
So what was it? Did you have any doubts? Were like when you took the job, you were like, yeah, I'll do it, but because you were there like, we're this new indie publisher and we're going to do a 60-issue run. Like, was the you that knows comics, were you like, oh, okay, guys, like, I'll do it. But
yeah, I mean, you know, all things are possible if you just decide you're going to do it. And I can't tell you how many people are so impressed by that declaration, and it's so unique. So, you know, if you have the financial wherewithal, seeing it through is just a fantastic benefit, you know, and once they made the decision to do that, and John Strand's already talking about the next series, and I'm like, dude, man, only a third through this one, or barely a third through this one. Let's, you know, let's wait.
I've heard some stuff in meetings too. And I was like, whoa, like, okay, party on.
Yeah. So yeah, they're very ambitious. You know, they're tech people. They love it when you tell them you can't do that. You know, that's a gauntlet, you know, being thrown down to them. And so, yeah, it's terrific. By the time 2025 is over, I mean, I will have done a third of the run will be done on my end, you know.
Wow.
So we're not halfway, but you know, and you know, we've been working on this for like 3 years. So like there were a couple of years of work put into it before even issue 1 came out in the spring. So and it sort of evolved from is it going to be, you know, standalone graphic novels? It's going to be a series. So it's kind of this right now. Obviously, there's the hardcovers go on the Kickstarter, which is what we're talking about right now. And that this Kickstarter is going to encompass the origin stories, which is the Martina one we were just talking about, and there's ones for Sally and Arf and everybody. And then rather than being unconnected, there's a big climactic story at the end of that. That starts in 6. It's a 2-parter.
And you guys are doing like a Joe teased it a little bit, like a 10-page bonus that shows off like the
correct
Thanos level baddie. If I'm understanding.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's right. That's each Kickstarter hardcover has had a little tease. The first one had one, and the second one also has it's like you get a little sneak peek.
What's really cool about the second Kickstarter and why we're today of local comic shop day, but you know, we're doing this deal where if starting at tier 1, you know, for $25 you get the PDF of issues 2 through 7, the PDF of volume 2, right. And you also get a $25 gift card to your local comic shop. That's tier 1. And then as the tiers increase, there's hardcover, there's skate decks. We're doing CGC issues. We're doing some variants for the origin issues, like single prints. We haven't announced those, or we haven't shown them yet, but I got to see some. We're going to show them soon. They're awesome. But it's a cool campaign, and you know, we're just the idea of like combining Kickstarter, you know, and the real world comic shops, right? These two markets, they don't have to compete with each other, and they can coexist and they can grow. What's your thoughts on this, Fred? Because it's a quirky campaign saying like come to Kickstarter, but also go to your comic you know, this kind of back and forth, and the book itself is kind of back and forth in between the direct market and Kickstarter. What, as someone who's been in you know, both markets, what's your thoughts on trying to stay in both spaces?
Well, you kind of have to be everywhere, you know. I mean, that's just kind of the bottom line, is that to make a living at this, you kind of have to sell it in multiple markets. You know, it's always the way it was with cartooning. That's always it's been in comic strips and comic books. Is, you know, you have the main edition, then you have the collected edition, then you have the hardcover, the collected edition, then you have the prints, and blah 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 blah. You just kind of have to be everywhere. I mean, I understand some retailers. I had some discussion with some retailers who are pretty hostile to stuff that goes up on Kickstarting. I think they see it as somewhat cannibalizing the customer base, and I get that. But I also think that just from having done so much Kickstarter comics, there is a very healthy Kickstarter only market and buyer out there who's only getting stuff on Kickstarter and knows about it through Kickstarter. So all of these markets aren't necessarily overlapping. There's not necessarily a Venn diagram there. So you kind of have to be everywhere. I would add books, you know, the regular bookstores to that market as well. I would add digital as well, which I know is something that REKCAH is talking about. But you kind of have to do all these things simultaneously. It's really important.
You mentioned earlier your local shop. You shouted it out. What the idea of? I've recently stumbled across a new idea, editing Adam's podcast. That this idea. I mean, I always knew comic shops were a cool place, but there's this idea of like comic shops as not just a place to go to get your books, right? But a place, like a safe place, a comfortable place that's like, it's not your home, right? And it's not your home, it's not your job, but it's this other intimate kind of place that you want to spend time at. And successful shops encourage you to spend time and get you to spend extra time there, right? What do you think? What makes a good shop in your opinion? Like what makes you want to sit and hang out in a shop?
I mean, I've seen all sorts. Like there's a place, the place in Orlando I mentioned we did in the tour was Blackbird Comics and Coffee, where they literally is half the shop is a comic shop, the other half is a sizable coffee shop. So they literally, you know, You can just hang out there. So there's that. Demetrius does a great job with anyone, which is Brooklyn, New York. My local comic shop where he has art classes. He has political, he hosts various political groups that I'm a member of. Particularly post-pandemic, it's great to have a brick and mortar gathering place that isn't, a bar. Although you can have a bar too, that plenty of comic shops serve alcohol. And that's another way to get people there. I think, like I was saying on the creative side about selling comics in multiple venues, using that space and having it open for multiple uses is another great way to keep the lights on, I think, for shop owners.
It wasn't the first shop I walked into, but when I was a kid, for just a short amount of time, a shop opened like a few blocks down the street. It's a liquor store now, but they painted, like, they had a big Wolverine. They painted it on the wall, and it was a tiny little shop, and he had like the counter was all glass, and he like had figures and statues like around the counter where the register was. And anyway, it was like I just remember my dad taking me in there, and I was like, whoa. And I also, this is how I found out about the comics code, because I was trying to buy Dark Horse Alien comics, and my dad was like, all comics are for kids. He didn't care, he was like, yeah, get it. And the clerk was like, this is like an adult book. And anyway, like, my dad wouldn't let me buy it after that. And I like looked at this guy, I was like, why would you do this to me, man? But it was still like, it was such a cool place. And like, do you have like some core memory of nostalgia in a shop that you remember every now and then? It makes you feel warm inside.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I was younger, the greatest stores were always the one where you walked in there and it looked like they'd never thrown anything away. Like everything that the shop had ever ordered that hadn't sold is just still sitting there. That green, the shelves groaning under the weight of back issues and mad paperbacks and heavy metal back issues in or out of bags. The store owner is a surly dude with a mustache. He's watching a TV this big behind the counter. Like, I'm an 80s kid. I think I'm a bit older than you. So that's like, and I also grew up in a nowhere town in Ohio where the nearest shop was 40-minute drive away. So it wasn't until I turned 16 really that I was able to get out and find that stuff. We had a fun comic shop in the mall at Syracuse University where I went. I spent a lot of time in there. And then sadly, I just saw it. I think it just closed. My favorite of those shops, I visited a buddy of mine in LA, and at the by the Santa Monica Pier, there was Heidi Ho. I think it was the Santa Monica Pier. And it was Heidi Ho Comics, which was in LA and was this fantastic kind of like, another one of those stores where it's just like there's underground comics and there's Conan paperbacks and that week's releases just all kind of intermingling and just pure chaos. It's heaven to me.
We have this Clint's Comics, and it's like, it's supposedly the oldest comic shop in America. No one knows if it's true or not. But it's very old. But like a few years ago, the owner got in a car accident, got struck by a car by the shop and died. And his wife tries to run it, and the community helps out. But that's when I do stop in there. It just seems like they're always, like I said, so welcoming, but very busy. But I was in a shop the other day. I went to buy I went to buy dice because I was like, I started getting into I started buying the Marvel D&D books, thinking I could maybe get my friends to play the new Marvel TTRPG game.
Matt Froberg designed that. He's a great dude.
It seems like a cool game. I still can't get my friends into the idea of it, but I went to get dice, and I heard this shop had like a cool gaming department, and they had a graphic novel sale, and I went to check out. I've been wanting to read The Crow, and I was like, if they have a hard copy of The Crow, like, I'll snag it. And they didn't. And I thought, I didn't realize like The Crow was as long running as it was, and the clerk was very knowledgeable of it, and he told me all this, and I was like, wow. And then I kind of forgot too, because I was like, oh yeah, like it's nice to talk comic, because that's why I started podcasting. That's why I started doing some of this stuff. And when the shops aren't busy, if it's not slammed and Wednesday, they're trying to stock shelves and clear lines simultaneously, but they do, it's just nice, like going to a place, even if you're talking to a stranger, you just kind of find like these brief moments of like commonality, and it's very joyous. And that's so I'm glad, especially like with everything Diamond, and like no one knows what's going to happen with Free Comic Book Day, which is another important industry day that's kind of up in the air right now. Like I'm glad local comic shop days, I'm glad people are coming out, stepping up and doing stuff for it, and reminding us that this is another special time in our industry. What do you think about the days like that? Because we should support the shops every day, right? Because they are a key thing that keeps us having, like that's why we don't have real jobs, because of them in a way, right? What do you think? It's a good day, right? But we should also remind people to like love them the other 364.
That's right. And don't forget to pick up what's in your pull box.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've
been guilty. I've been guilty of that. I've always tried to make it right though. I did want to ask one thing, because going back to the Kickstarter and the $25 gift card.
Okay.
What would you, if you tell back, I mean, obviously, like we'd love for you to go in and get back issues of REKCAH. Fred would probably love for you to get some Valiant stuff, right? But something that doesn't have your name on it. What would you recommend to like go take this gift card into a comic shop and check out?
I'll give you kind of a crunchy, kind of touchy-feely answer, which is like, just try something new. Something that that's outside your comfort zone. You're not trying to become a fan of a new thing. And support a creator that maybe you've never heard of, and that's not a big 2 book. That's one of the reasons I love those sort of, I'm going, waxing poetic about those older shops, is I just love discovering stuff. It's like I'm an archaeological dig, and what weird artifacts am I going to find? Take the gift card and get something you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't get the gift card.
Yeah, like take a risk on something. Okay, yeah. I like that. That's a good. That's Mark Wade. When he was in Kansas City 2 years ago, he said something similar. Like somebody asked in a panel, like what you want to get into comics, but it's confusing. You walk into a shop and there's all this stuff, and he said, go indie and go. He was like, go indie and diverse. And I promise you probably won't be mad you did. And I was like, hell yeah, dude. Like,
Mark is a smart guy. He also was one of the web heads in Amazing Spider-Man. That's where I met him.
Oh, wow. That's, he's a cool dude. I got to watch him fight with Chris Claremont live in front of an audience. This is absolutely, it was amazing. It was, I couldn't believe it was happening, but
they're both very opinionated.
Like, both. And yeah, anyway, it was fun. Someone who's, whether they like sci-fi or not, or want to embrace the narrative dystopia while our real life dystopia shadows over us, what do you say to someone? The future is, this sounds interesting. Why should we back this Kickstarter? Why should we put it on our pull list? What would you tell them?
Well, I think Jason, the future is always hopeful, right? I mean, that's what Jason talks about, and I agree. I mean, it's not really a dystopia in like the young adult series sense, like where there's some sort of autocratic government, kind of despot looking down. It's more like it's just sort of chaos, and the Black Mountain people, our heroes, our hero hackers, are the ones trying to help people make sense of it all. So I think it's a very hopeful book. We are pulling stuff from the headlines and sort of bleeding edge technology. And so if you get a kick out of the stuff at all, I would definitely check out the book. And it's if you like Mission Impossible, if you like leverage, if you like people, putting one over the bad guys, and there's a lot of that going on. So it's and of course, we haven't yet mentioned the capture the flag challenges, that if you're into hacking, you're into programming at all, REKCAH makes sure that each issue's got unique hacking exercises for you to try out, and they have a leaderboard and everything. So it's a way of fostering community that's really cool. So it is a super fun and fantastic comic book series. I'm a little biased, obviously, but it's also more than that. It's also building a community.
Yeah, what Black Hills is doing is very cool. And yeah, the CTF challenges in every issue, there's different tiers of difficulty, but you can find these challenges and solve them. And when you solve them, they go to online and get tracked. It's a really cool feature. Joe Keating, I have a clip we can insert.
I'll say I'd never hacked before, but they gave me access to the cyber range earlier on. And not only was I able to do it, I learned a lot, and it's a thing for me now. Like, I love doing it. The most base level tech knowledge I had kind of bottomed out with Windows 98, so it's been a minute, but it's a really great tool. So it's basically all these little exercises that you can do. It's like going to a gun range, for instance. You're trying out little things and building the skill and getting your reps in, and the more you do, the more those skills aggregate, and it's really smartly built. So if you've never attempted it before, as someone who really had no knowledge of it going in, I think it's well worth a while, especially in this day and age, and you'll learn a lot real quick.
But he talked about how into it he was. He's not like a big computer guy, but they gave him access to it, and he thought he'd check it out, and he kind of like he got into it, like he was doing the challenges and
really into it.
So yeah, it's worth trying. And that's those are also, some of those come on the Kickstarter tiers, depending on which ones you get. They come with like a free month or 3 months, 6 months. Well, the CTF challenges are always in the for anybody, but there's a cyber range is another kind of like hacking training, cybersecurity training, hacking, interactive game kind of. That comes with the Kickstarter, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Yeah, the CTF challenges are cool. Anytime you can get somebody to pick up a book and read it again, right? Whether it's to find a challenge or hopefully it's just good enough they want to experience the story, right? But yeah, they give you reasons to come back and open these books or to go get the deluxe hardcovers, because they have hidden challenges and stuff in them too that are exclusive to those editions. It's like y'all know what you're doing, because I even work for you, and I'm like, I get one of these books, right? Like I keep being like, they just sent me a huge care. It was like they sent me the LP and the CD and the hardcover, the single issues that you all signed, and I was like,
very cool.
Oh man, I felt like a nerd prince. I was like, I haven't got a package like this in a hot minute. Yeah, they're good. They're good people. You're good people too, Fred. I'm glad you're working with them, and I've got to read the new issues too, and I'm into it. Like I said, like I also drank the Kool-Aid. I'm having fun working with REKCAH and seeing what you guys put out. Anything else you'd like to say to the people watching, the streamers or the retailers tuning in, Fred?
Yeah, man, I keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome, and we will be there to support you in every way we can.
Nerds, and happy local comic shop day. We are coming in hot from REKCAH Studios. I've got Eisner winning editor Joe Keating, and we're here to talk about comics, local comic shop day, why it's awesome, and maybe a couple other fun things. Joe, how you doing today, bud?
Great. I love that energy, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's great to be here. Love supporting comic shops. So I appreciate you inviting me, have me on.
Oh yeah, I'm well. We were all invited. Thanks to the EXP for doing this.
Yeah,
It's very cool what they're doing. I was talking. We were here with Fred as well, and Fred Van Lente, the writer of The Future Is, and we were talking about like how nice this holiday is because Free Comic Book Day it's up in the air right now, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen. All this stuff with Diamond and previews is every week is more drama in the headlines, right? And so it's nice that we still have this day to celebrate not only like the shops that sell the comics, but the comics is just the whole retail side of it. It's a weird animal, the retail side of comics, right? Like,
oh yeah, I mean, just in my general life interests, which I've been blessed enough to be able to intertwine that with my work. But yeah, I mean, I've been going, just as a person who reads comics, I've been going to comic shops since I was a kid. I had a couple of really great stores, Superior Comics and Heidi Ho Comics, especially in Santa Monica, California. And Heidi Ho in particular was great because just there was no, and I mean, this is a high positive, high praise. It wasn't really, from what I call like organized, or at least like everything was kind of together. It wasn't that it was a mess. It was just everything was kind of just together. And so it really formulated my view on comics. Hugo Pratt and Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and Mobius and manga and just like underground comics, Mickey Rat, Robert Crumb, was just like all this stuff was the same. Colleen Duran, Wizard Magazine. It was all just like this nexus of all realities. There was no distinguishing, like, and they had also great back issues. So that Jack Kirby was contemporaneous with all this other stuff. That formed my comics brain, and then also just I love all parts of comics. I worked for a publisher for a long time. I worked with a lot of retailers in that capacity because I was doing sales as part of my many hats I wore at that job. And then I even worked at comic stores. After I worked at that publisher, I worked at a store called Neon Monster that was there in San Francisco for a while. And then I also worked at Floating World Comics in Portland, Oregon, and I helped them out with orders and everything. So,
oh, that shop's crazy.
Yeah, I worked with them when they were downtown Portland, and we helped out with ordering. And I worked the shop. This is when shipments were coming in Tuesday for Wednesday on sale. And I worked the shop then. So yeah, I mean, I love working creative. I love writing. I love editing. But like, yeah, the business of the whole thing of comics, I think is fascinating. And I think no matter what your capacity is, but it's a business. You need to be plugged in to understand what that business is. Like, and don't get me wrong, I could go on a whole rant about distinguishing creative and in business, blah blah blah, not letting one eclipse the other necessarily. But like, you need to be cognizant of how this actually operates. There's a lot of bad commentary online with a little understanding of how the industry actually operates, and so to have a really in-depth understanding, I think, is really important, and something that I'm always continually working on bettering for myself. So yeah, man, I love stores and I love knowing what's going on, and got a great store here I go to called Captain Comics.
In the years you've been in the industry, and doing press tours with publishers or recently like with REKCAH and seeing stores all over the country, right? What's something to you that like when you walk into a shop and you see something or like a vibe you get and you're like, okay, this is one of the good ones. This is one of the special ones.
Well, there's a couple of different dimensions to that question, right? There's like the general, like the overall, what I look for in a store. And then there's like the dimension of like, what do I personally just want, right? Like the first dimension being like a really great establishment of comic store as third place. Like, are people coming here to be here and be part of a community? One of the guys behind REKCAH, Jason Blanchard, ran a store called a comic shop in Florida with Aaron Holland, and they really innovated that idea throughout the early 2000s. And even guys like Rory Root, which goes and Brian Hibbs, going back to the Bay Area comic shops with Comic Relief and a comics experience, like really making not just a place you go buy things, but a place you like go hang out. Like when I was living in San Francisco, I'd go hang out with Brian Hibbs, and like every Friday after work, I just liked hanging out with him, and I liked hanging out at a store. So Isotope in kind of San Francisco was the same way. That's really important to me. That's a general thing. For me personally, I love back issues. I love back issue diving. I've got like a truffle pig nose for back issues. So like we were on tour. Here's a story. So the owner of the company that owns REKCAH, John Strand, great guy, great guy. It really hit it off. He was telling us there's this one comic. I don't know if I can remember the name of it off the top of my head. I think it was called The Raz. And he was like, yeah, I read it when I was a kid. And so that was like the beginning of the tour. He told us that when we were at Third Eye. And then he had to go teach because he teaches a lot of cybersecurity stuff. And then we drove down Adam Freeman from Prana, Jason Blanchard, Deb Wigley from REKCAH, Fred Van Lente. And we're driving this van. We stop at a killer store in Savannah, Georgia, called Neighborhood Comics. My back issue truffle pig nose goes off. I'm like, there's something here, something important. And usually that means like some issue of Wizard I don't have, or I look for a lot of like I did find for myself an issue of Marvel Age that had a preview of the 90s superhero. Like I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, weird, esoteric, whatever. But I was like, there's something else here, and I kept going. And then this miniseries that I had never heard of until the day before from John, we found it in the back issue bin at Neighborhood Comics, and it was a complete set for like $12. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So that's like the personal end for me, right? There's the business end of like comic stores, third place, community center. But then the personal thing is like having those kind of magic moments where you're like, here's a lost treasure that you drove to Savannah, Georgia, and you found at the killer shop. Neighborhood Comics is a great example, actually, because it's not a huge floor space, but everything is so methodical. Like we were talking with the owner, and I found it hard to concentrate just because every single corner of the store had something awesome to look at. And it was very enticing. And it was just like, you just wanted to be there. So I guess that kind of combines all those things. But yeah, man, I love comic shops.
They're very cool. I still remember like being a kid. So like my dad was my dad's not really a nerd, but he was a real supportive of me being a nerd. Like
sure.
He was the maintenance man at my grade school. And awesome. So like one day I'm out at recess and he walks up to me, like I'm with all my friends, and he walks up to me and he hands me the Death of Superman trade paperback. And he was like, hey, the guy said everybody was talking about this one. And dude, I was king for a day. Dead. Like everybody was like, what? Superman's dead? We're all like, they're like, everybody's around me. They're telling me, like, even like the older, like the older grade schoolers are like, they're like telling me when to turn the pages. Like we're all reading it at the same time. And so I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then my dad took me to the shop, and I didn't know that there was like a store that just
that
sold
same day
toys.
He took you to the store?
No, like later, the next, like later that week.
Soon
like,
thereafter. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, because he was
awesome.
like, you read it? You liked it? And so he takes me to the shop, and I was like, whoa. And then so he started. My parents are together, but they fought a lot, and so he totally would like take me to comic shops when they got in fight, right? And it was like cool, but it was I'm significantly closer with my dad, but anyway, so there's probably some games being played there too. But I got exposed to comic shops instead of hearing my parents screaming at each other, right? So it was already kind of in my kid mind, it was safe, right? Because no one was yelling, and I don't want to sound like my childhood was screwed up, right? It was just like it was quiet.
No, dude, I get it. Your parents are human. And they had some stuff to deal with, sounds like. But then they turned into this beautiful thing where you got to experience this whole new. And look at you now. Look what you're doing with it now. And your dad helped foster. So that's great.
Who would have thought? Like then, but yeah, there for a short time we had a shop down the street. I mean, like a down the street pizza shop, but comics. And it's a liquor store now, but It didn't last long, and he painted like Wolverine, this huge Wolverine on one of the walls, and he had I still remember the register was like in the middle of the store kind of, and he had glass shelves all around it, and that's where like the fancy figures and statues were, like around the register, and then the books were all around the small store on the shelves. And it was so cool. And unfortunately that's also where we learned about the comics code, because I was trying to I was into Aliens because my dad let me watch the movie, right? Till I find out there's Dark Horse Alien comics, right? So I'm like, yeah. So I'm like second, third grade. I'm young, right? And so I'm like, yeah, buy me this comic where people are dying and dropping F-bombs and stuff. And my dad doesn't know. He's like, oh, comics are for kids, you know? And the clerk goes, hey, this isn't really like a kid's comic. And I still remember my dad like looking around the store like, this is all kid comics. Like, what are you talking about? Comics? And the guy's like, no, man, these are like the movies. Like, people die and they cuss. And my dad was like, oh, he can't have that. And I was like, no, like, I want the Alien book. So yeah, I kind of got like betrayed and swept away simultaneously on my first comic shop visit. But I remember that forever, like the wow and the wonder, and then having my dad take that Dark Horse Aliens issue out of my hands, like, no. But it was still like, and it made, reading was cool. I grew up in a house that said reading was cool. It was all, so it's important to me.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm always chasing that same dragon. I remember when I was 1992, I was in Catholic school, and I remember someone had brought Spawn #1, and I just remember like reading it, or I don't remember, but anyway, I remember where I was exactly where I was when I was reading it for the first time, and I thought I was like gonna go to jail because like here was a comic that was like this guy gets murdered and he's brought back to life, and by essentially the devil. And it's like he has like demonic powers, and I was like, "This is the coolest feeling I've ever had." Where it's like, I should not. This is like illegal contraband from another dimension. You know what I mean? Comics needs more of that.
Dude, that is hilarious because I had Violator issue 3, not even the first two, but it was like the Greg Capullo, and I can't remember it was a big writer. But the cover,
Alan Moore.
Oh my God, it was Alan Moore. That's crazy.
Yeah, Alan Moore wrote that. Yeah.
So it had, but the cover I remember like had Violet, and there's like people's body parts are in trash cans in this alleyway and stuff, and it's
that
just
first
gruesome
miniseries.
cover.
That was Bart Sears, wasn't it? Or am I thinking of a different one?
I'm not sure.
Anyway,
I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I trust your knowledge more than it was, so because this would have been in the 90s too. I was in but I had this. I carried it around with me everywhere. It was ruined, it was wrinkled, it was torn, but it was always in my backpack, so I could like pull it out and look at it. And yeah, it was funny because I never had the first two issues. I just had this third one. But that's how comics were. You stumble across stuff at the gas station or the grocery store and buy what you could.
We're both right.
Oh, really?
Bart Sears and Greg Capullo. I gotta dig that out. That was good stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's like the only Spawn I've like. That's one like comic entity I haven't got far into. So I love the HBO anime. Like I love that.
I don't know if this skews from the purpose of the interview, but let's go. I could talk about Tom McFarlane Spawn all day. I think
we could throw some bonus footage.
I don't know if the purpose is to plug a book or whatever. I don't care. I'll talk about whatever. But I mean, like. Yeah, no, Todd was a genius. Then talk about like building community. Like nobody knew what Spawn was when it came out, and then like he didn't know how to make toys anyway. Like I don't know, and then he made toys. I don't know, whatever. Got a lot of admiration for that guy. But yeah, no, that's the magic of comics, man. Is like you find that thing and it sticks with you forever, and then it's yours in a way, because you're sitting there and you're reading it, and sometimes like I love the Superman story you told, because sometimes it can become a communal experience. But even then, like when it is like communal experience, everyone's having their unique experience reading it. Like if you go to movies, and I love movies, I love going to the movie theater. You're in a communal place, and then you're all watching the same movie move at the same velocity of time, right? But with comics, every single person is the pacing is kind of like that. The reader is an essential part of the storytelling. And I don't think there's anything else like that. I mean, you can argue prose, but still, in terms of a visual medium, I think comics does better than anything else. So, and I read a lot of books, obviously, and watch a lot of movies, read a lot of comics. So
Well, they know like there's different parts of your brain that are act like, because when you only look at art and when you only read prose, but when you work comics, those different elements of your mind are working together. But that I love how, because as a writer, as a creator, as an editor, you want to control pacing when you need to. You probably have to remind people like, hey, it's slowing down here and we need to pick it up a little bit, and like or vice versa, like we need to spend some more time in this moment at this scene. And even with the creative team trying to control that, the reader is still like at their own pace, however hard you're pushing them. I never really thought of it like that.
Yeah, no, it's essential. I mean, like, obviously there's storytelling. What's the term everyone loves using? There's like decompressed storytelling and whatever, but like you can still pour over the pages. Like I was just rereading, I picked up the DC compact edition of The Authority, the first run by Ellis and Brent Hitch. And it's like it's decompressed, but you could like spend time and really pour over it. And it was like taking a lot longer than I think I used to, because it's just the storytelling is so fascinating, especially like Brian Hitch's visual storytelling. Like you could just there's still so much to learn. That comic came out like 20 years ago, and you can still so much you can learn by going over it. And then there's comics that are overwritten that have lots of dialogue that I'm just like, this is boring, I'm gonna skip it. You know what I mean? And there are comics that have a lot of dialogue and it's not boring and you want to really immerse yourself in it. Like one of my favorite writers of all time is Steve Gerber, especially his run on Howard the Duck. And it's like there's an issue that what has more text than traditional word balloons, has a lot of like not captions but free flowing text, and it's just like it's fascinating. You just want to live in it for a bit. So yeah, I know you're essentially inviting the reader in to interact with this storytelling world that you've built, and it's up to them to kind of figure out how they're going to go about it. So yeah, no. Wow. That's why I love doing what I do. I love creative puzzles, and I love the alchemy of comics and the different story telling disciplines that it requires, and that it always requires the reader.
Hell yeah, man. And it's going back to comic shop talk, that's also how the comic and the reader is so important, and how the the comic invites the reader, and the shop also kind of has to invite. You're gonna walk up to a shop, probably because you want to buy something and you looked up where you didn't want to go to an online retailer or whatever, so you look up and you go, but they need to pull you in. They always have like cool window display, like the cool shops. They always have like, I know a few of them have like that giant Silver Surfer that went around for a while, and like they put like clothes and hats on them and stuff, So you always got something like that. What I'm shocked continuously, and I see game rooms like at the comic shops in Kansas City, but I don't see a lot of places to like for people to like sit, because everything's so retail focused and shelf space focused. But it seems like, when we mention like a coffee shop in a shop, like there's tables, there's chairs, there's like a place to sit down and read.
I mean, we signed at a store called Blackbird in it was just outside of Orlando, I think. It was in Florida, and that place, it has a comic shop, like depending on your location, but if you're standing like in the front looking out into the store, rather, like the left has comics, including a killer back issue selection. I picked up a bunch of cool stuff there too, including a couple old Wizards, old skate magazines and stuff. I collect the esoteric kung fu magazines. I collect the esoteric. And then on the far right side, there's like games, and there's manga, and there's a few other things. And in the middle is a killer coffee shop. I drink a lot of coffee, and it was really well done. So like I think that kind of thing, but it takes all kinds. Like we also signed at Third Eye Comics, which is I think one of the greatest comic stores of all time. And I could be corrected because they do have like 3 different at this one like they have multiple locations, and then at this one location where we're at, they also had like a record store, and they had a game store, and the game store of course has places to go play game stuff, but I don't recall if they actually had any seating at the comic shops. But still, it was serving a different purpose and a different sort of audience. I love the variety, but yeah, no, I think that's a good point.
I heard editing Adam's podcast, but they were talking about it on one of the shows the other day. The checkout counter, like where the cashier has stools in front of it like a bar.
Okay.
And so you can like sit there and I was like, that's, that kind of made me think, because I've seen, people hang out in shops, right? But
Yeah.
it's like you're usually standing or browsing through the back issues, right? If you do want to like buy an issue, like I remember when Grant Morrison killed Damian Wayne, and I love Damian Wayne. I'll die. I know a lot of people don't like him. I'll die on that hill. It's fine. But like I ran into the shop and like grabbed that Batman Incorporated and I stood in the corner and I read it because the newspaper spoiled it like the day before. They're like, they're killing Robin again. And I was like, no. But and then and then I'm like trying not to cry in a comic shop because Grant's a genius. But like it was just like again, another little moment that I was a bouncer. So like on Tuesday nights was our dollar drink night. And so I'd help I'd help the bartenders and stuff clean up at the end of the night and for a tip out on top of being a door guy. And I was a Wednesday warrior from cash tip outs, like for many years working at
that's awesome.
working at the bar. And so like, I'd usually stumble in because I was off Wednesday nights too. So I'd stumble in at like, 1, 2, like trying, might be a little hungover because I used to party. But like I'd buy $80 worth of comics with like 1s and 5s. Sorry,
I love
guys.
it. That's awesome.
But this, like you said, these are memories that'll live with me forever, and it got me to be less stupid because I ran into an issue after a while, Joe, where I was like, you can't do the dumb things and keep buying all your comic books, and you got to think about what you enjoy more, and I enjoy comics a lot more. So. But yeah, it's comic shops are a cool place. So even it is, I think I'm working this out audibly, but I'm like, why don't they have chairs? And they don't need them really. They want you to wander around the shop, browse the bins. This is strategic. They keep you on your feet and rotating to find more trinkets to buy. What's one of the best things you ever found in it? I've never had a lot of luck dollar binning. So I usually I'll pay eBay and do the easy way. But like, what's one of the best things you ever found in a bin?
Oh wow. I mean, back issue bins, dollar bins are a big part of my comics buying experience. I would say, I don't know exactly what you're asking, but one thing I do a lot is, especially if I'm at conventions and there's a really good back issue bin, there's a couple of back issues that I buy and then just like hand out like their chick tracks, those like religious tracks that they hand out. Because I'm just like, you need to read this. And a lot of people haven't seen them. Like X-Force #8, which was Rob Liefeld did the layouts, but Mike Mignola just before Hellboy, and it may have even been just before he did that Dracula adaptation, which is classic. And it's a fusion of just two art styles you think just would not work together. Rob Liefeld's dynamic storytelling, and then Mignola's more like and Mignola. Both those guys are some of my all-time favorites. But Mignola's more somber storytelling, especially with the characters of Cable and everything. It's just a fascinating like document of like, you can do this with comics, and it's interesting. I buy that a lot. I buy Spider-Boy Team Up a lot, which was Ladrone drew it. It was part of the Amalgam line. Anytime I find that in a dollar bin, I'll buy it. I'll just like give it to the next person I see. Like, have you read this before? There's a few others like that. I would say the one other experience that like sticks out of my head in terms of like finding gold was I love all kinds of comics. I really love underground comics, and I'm a big free speech guy. And one of my white whales for a long time was Mickey Mouse Meets the Air Pirates, which was really hard. It's never going to be reprinted. And I was at Baltimore Comic-Con and we were wrapping up. I can't remember if I was working at Image at the time or mid in the year, like after. I don't remember. Anyway, point is, it was like the end. It was like Sunday night, dead tired. Hadn't had any time to myself to explain. I love looking at cons. Baltimore Comic-Con, especially, is a great convention. If you read or make comics. And I was digging through this bin and I found one that was like signed by the Dan O'Neill and Mark London. Anyway, and a couple other guys. And it was just like a thing I never thought it would have exist, and now it's like, can't see it, but it's on top of my spinner rack on the 70s side, and like that was just like That was one of those moments where like you think you're done, you think you're out, and then you find this thing that you've always wanted, you know?
That's cool. That's way better than I bought this thing for $1 and sold it for $500.
Yeah, I'm really like, if collectors saw my collection, they would be like, "What are you doing?" Like that is just sitting on a. I'm not against CGC. I think it's really cool, and like if I own like Action Comics #1 or something, I probably would CGC it. But like I've got stuff that is worth a lot of money that I did buy probably for $1 because I'm very cheap. I'm very frugal. I don't like paying top dollar for anything. In fact, I prefer reader copies because they don't. But anyway, it's all just like in a box or a filing cabinet or on a spinner rack. Like it's not. I buy these things to read them, you know. And even that case, that Mickey and the Air Pirates, again, it's just on the spinner rack. Like it's just I don't know. I love reading comics. I'm not a great reseller. Like I have a friend who's like a big reseller guy, and I admire that ability and skill set on it. But I don't know. Oh, the only time I will say this, the only time I've ever done it was I was a big Image kid coming up, and so I was obsessed with Image comics, and I was obsessed like anything Image I'd read. And so they had I think it was a free magazine called Malibu Sun. And there for I don't know if it's still the case, but for a minute there, the one that featured Spawn for the first time was going for like $500. I told my local store, like, if I give this to you and you sell it, can you just give me store credit and I'll just like live off that for like, whatever. And they were like, sure. Because I was like, this is just sitting here. You know what I mean? If people want it that bad because there's a drawing of Spawn in it, and I can buy the new like Brubaker and Phillips books for the next, 12 months, like that's fine with me. So that's as close as I think I get. It's not really my inclination to like, oh, like I'm gonna go find the deal and then resell it, Like I want a New Mutants 98 just because I want it.
Oh, I'm surprised you don't have it. Or like,
yeah, I know, me too. Well, I think I did back in the day, and then I don't know what happened to it, but I was obsessed with Liefeld's New Mutants run and X-Force run. So anyway, but like I refuse to spend $200 on it. Whatever it is now, If I find that in a dollar bin, only pay $1 for it, it will just go on my spinner rack.
What do you on that note, what's getting you right now? What are you into?
Comics, more specifically comics wise. I gotta film this run. I have a complete run of Master of Kung Fu comic books, but I really do need to fill in this run of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. I like comics. I kind of feel like it should be illegal to own them. You know what I mean? Like Spawn as a kid.
Yeah.
And like Deadly Hands of Kung Fu is great because it has ads for like martial arts that probably aren't real. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Or 70s Marvel is really like I think it probably would have been a nightmare to like run it as like the president of whatever, but of Marvel. But in terms of like creatively, I think it's fascinating. So that's probably my jam right now. Well, nice. Marvel magazines. So if any retailers have copies of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu for a lot less than is probably the going rate, because I'm very cheap. I'm your man.
Yeah, reach out. We'll connect you with Joe. Let's get Joe's gaps filled with.
Yeah,
he works hard. Yeah.
Hook him up. The first couple of Deadly Tales, or not Deadly Tales, excuse me. Savage Tales. I need to. So look at that.
Are you are you like collecting like single issues over like the omnibus? Like I was real into omnibuses for a while, and I'm kind of glad I fell out of it because that was an expensive,
Yeah, I mean, I collected all sorts of. I mean, my usual preference is single issues, just because I think that there's I like the format, and it's not nostalgia, although people could argue that, but I would argue against that because there is something like unique to the format that I think is very interesting, especially when it's done well, and it's it's not even just the storytelling, but like the ads are really fascinating.
Yeah, the kind of going back in time sometimes.
Yeah, and also just like especially in the 70s Marvel, they were advertising like buy a monkey for $5, and you're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like I find that really fascinating.
I love comics for that, like that kind of magic. How these little you have Spider-Man and the Avengers fighting Dr. Doom. You got Batman, or you got Wonder Woman and Captain America teaming up with Chip Zdarsky to stop Hitler, right? And literally in the new issue, the crossover issue, and it's all this stuff goes on every week, but sometimes you'll find these little gems that just kind of like ignite you, like with like passion and excitement. Anything that does that to me these days and age, like I'm all about. A comic that's real good about that, about talking, about new futures and community building and trying to make a better life. The future is right now out in comic shops and on Kickstarter, and it would be poor of me not to let you pitch it, Joe, because I've heard you do it a couple times now, and you're damn good at it.
Just got my copies of number 7. I don't think this is out yet. It's not out for a little bit.
Is that Nick's new cover?
Nick Patera. Yeah. X Wilder John, Manhattan Projects. So yeah, the future takes place about roughly, we don't exactly say, but it's a few decades in the future. It's in a world where the black hat hackers, the bad guys, have won. You know, they have rights, you have terms of service, and there's a group of freebooters who, in the face of a world that threatens to drown all of us, they say, no, we're going to swim and defy all odds. So it's a little bit of, I'm not a huge fan of it's X meets Y, but it is good in this particular, like, it's kind of like a Black Mirror meets Mission Impossible sort of setting. And we've got a killer creative team. Fred Van Lente is the writer. And then we have the main artists are these 2 artists from Italy, Ennio Buffi and Mario D'Alessandro. And then the colorist is Andrea Miloni, and then we're a letter by Taylor Esposito, who's a name who a lot of you likely know, or you definitely see his stuff. He's lettered a bazillion comics. I'm editing it. I mean, I'll just say with this art team, we have Ennio, Mario, and Andrea. Like they're gonna do some damage in comics, which is gonna be great. Like, and again, I love that kind of thing. Like I edited a book called Pop Gun, and I was one of the editors on it. And my favorite thing was finding people no one has seen before and putting them out there with some established names and just seeing where they go. Like a really good friend of mine, Rob Guillory, I think his first major comics work was in Pop Gun. And,
wow.
Then he went off to do Chew and Farmhand and whatever. I love that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
It's like kind of, I'm not huge on college football, but like when my dad tells me why he likes watching it, because he's like, they try harder. It's like they're trying to make it, is that kind of, you kind of like you find these people, they're obviously talented and have work ethic and you see a drive in them, right? But like you kind of like they get this shot and really harness it, right? They're not phoning nothing in. They're literally putting everything out on the page.
I'm fascinated with human potential. And like it goes both ways, right? So there's the young artist who has a lot to prove. Like I love minor league baseball and hockey and everything for the reasons that your dad was putting out there. But also like I love a more veteran creator pushing himself to do something new. Like one of the things I worked on, which was one of the greatest gifts anyone's ever given me, was Robert Kirkman. Knew I was a huge fan. We both were huge fans of a book called Sleepwalker that came out in the 90s. And this artist of that, Brett Blevins. And one day Robert calls me up and he's like, I got this artist I want to put on a book. And Robert's really smart. He's like, he knew, by the way, he was kind of acting a little facetious. And he was like, I think it might be good work with him. His name is Brett Blevins. And I was like, what? Like, we're going to work with Brett Blevins. And we did a book together called Stellar. Now, if you compare Stellar to anything Brett has done before, he colored it too. And it's just like a completely different than anything he's ever done. But it's wholly him. It's like a next evolution. You know what I mean? Like my favorite thing outside of comics is combat sports. I love combat sports. And I love combat sports when you find guys who are, or young and they have something to prove. But I also like seeing the old, guys, like someone like Kayla Harrison. I could really go on a tangent here, so I'll make it quick. But she's been through a lot in her life. I'm not going to regale her role biography because I know it's a comics podcast. But when she won recently, you were just enraptured with it because she is one of the greatest fighters of all time. But she's been through so much in her life, and like she adopted her sister's kids and had to raise that, and it was just like a whole thing. And it's like people put their all into the ring, or more to the point of this interview on the comics page, whether they're young or old or whatever. Like, that's awesome. the worst thing you do is half-ass it. If you half-ass it in the ring, you're going to get knocked out. If you half-ass it on the comic page, you're going to put out garbage. So I guess my point being is I just want, if you're drawing, your image book, that's your dream book that you always wanted to do, or you're drawing a backup, and like I have a friend of mine who's one of the greatest editors of all time, and he would get people, he'd do a lot of licensed books, and people would tell him like, well, we're not making Watchmen here, like who cares? He's like, why not? Like, why not at least try? And going with that mindset, like, let's maybe try to create Watchmen with the whatever licenses he was working on. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you'll miss the mark, but at least you aim high and you try to, push things to your greatest possible potential. And yeah, maybe you fall short, right? Not a lot of people have created Watchmen since, and Watchmen's just one standard. That was his example. Push whatever plot of land you've been given in this industry and do the best possible job with it. So whether it's, again, your passion project or a Violator miniseries or whatever you're doing.
You mentioned like one of your favorite things is seeing new voices take control of a situation, but also seeing like veteran voices find new footing, try new things, take risks, right?
Sure.
What's something, and I know it's going to be different project to project, but what's something you do for you in your career to keep yourself and your perspective at a fresh glance, to where you don't get too comfy? It's not the same Joe K on every project. It's an evolved, a new age. You've got new experiences. What do you do to keep that mindset fresh?
Well, this gets awfully personal, but I'm happy to do so. You got to have more of a purpose in life than just comics. And I love comics, but like that can't be your all. And it was for me for a long time. And I think I did my most subpar work when it was. For me, there are things that I aim for, and I believe we are called to create things, and I believe that we're called to live lives beyond just what our profession is. And so family is very important to me. It's essential for me. I think having some sort of larger drive beyond what's on the page is really important. And I don't know, this gets far away from comics, and I'm happy to do so, but 2017 I discovered boxing, and I started doing that, and then not just watching it but doing it, and then getting out into nature. I just went on a big trip through Yellowstone and Jackson Hole, and drove a truck through beautiful places, and got to do fly fishing. You know what I mean? It's like having things beyond that, and nothing's more important than your relationship with your creator, and also just like your life with your family. So, I think just having more to life than comics, in whatever form that forms for you. You know what I mean? And because that only helps improve the work. So
that's awesome. I didn't know you like. Have you done like some sparring, like
oh yeah,
real matches? Yeah.
Well, I never competed like in the amateur circuit or anything like that, but yeah, I just go to a gym and spar with whoever's there.
Nice. When I was going to the gym a lot, like it was having access to a bag on a bad day where you could just wail, and it's just like you put on your headphones and you could just take some aggression out and then go home, and your hands hurt for a little bit, but you're like, that's okay. There's something not. I started gardening this year. I've talked to Adam
That's awesome.
about it.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and then I grow tomatoes and make pizza sauce and started making homemade pizza, and it's just
dude,
it is
rules.
little things like that.
That'll help you create good work. Here's the worst thing you do: stay on the internet and
be mad all day.
Yeah. Get off. Go touch grass. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah. No, the one good thing about working from home is my dogs bother me. But it's almost like they know, and I'm sure they do, because we put off pheromones when we're stressed and feel weird,
Sure.
but I'll take a break and wrestle with Bruce and Coco for a little bit, and then come back to it, or go outside with them for a little, and that I do like that. That's one nice thing. But yeah, even then that was the nice thing of smoking cigarettes for a while. But
don't smoke cigarettes.
Well, no, the cigarettes are bad, but when you could when you had to go to work and you could
sure.
leave and you'd go on a smoke break and go walk around outside. When I quit smoking, I lied and kept telling everybody I still smoke so I could go take a cigarette break. But yeah, it's easy to get like locked up inside.
Yeah.
Like we kind of like lock ourselves away and you don't realize it. And yeah, if it's as simple as going outside with a dog, or I know I'm the one to talk, right? But like go to the gym. I keep hearing that's a great thing to do, but it really does. And it like you sweat a little bit, or you get your blood flowing and your heart, your pulse changing a little bit, and your mind works a little bit differently, and it'll tackle problems differently that maybe you were having issues with an hour
100%.
or 2 hours before.
I have never solved a problem just by sitting and staring at a screen aimlessly. You know, it
Yeah.
really just boils down to like, aim for the highest possible purpose with the highest possible effort, and fail a bunch, and then you succeed a lot, some, and then keep doing that, and then you get better at it, and you keep doing better work, and I've certainly have my share of swings and misses.
Joe, I've kept you for a while, and we've been on plenty of tangents, but I'm sure the viewers at the EXP, I had fun listening to you. So hopefully they will too.
Yeah.
I asked Fred this question, and I'm gonna ask you the same. With one cool thing, there's a lot of cool things about the future is Kickstarter. But one of the neat things about it, right, is starting with tier 1, every backer, you get the PDF of volume 2, which is issues 2 through 7. And you also get a $25 gift card to your local comic book shop.
Yeah.
I'm curious, of course, we've all talked about this. We'd love for you to take that gift card and go buy REKCAH back issues or something like that. Something that like doesn't have REKCAH's name on it, doesn't have your name on it.
Sure.
What would you like? What would be a recommendation from you to spend this $25 gift card on?
The book I always recommend, I'm going to recommend 3 different books, and you can choose which one you want. One of the books that I always go back to and recommend when someone's like, what should people be reading that no one else is? There's a book published by Floating World called Black Phoenix. It's by Rich Tommaso, and he does everything on the book. He writes it, draws it, letters it, colors it, draws the ads. That was in a hardcover edition. That might be like $25 and then some, but you may probably buy it for $10. I have a subscription at my comic shop for anything Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips does, and it's to the point where I don't want to know what it is. I don't want to read anything about it. I don't want to read interviews with them about it. I don't want to see a preview. I just want to go to the comic shop, buy it, and then read it, and just be like, oh, this is a new criminal book. Like, oh, awesome, And they did one called The Knives recently that is fantastic. And then the last thing I'll recommend, actually, was recently in New Mexico, and I stopped by a store called Big Adventure, and Kevin, the owner, recommended this Bowling with Corpses by Mike Mignola and colored by Dave Stewart. And it's all drawn by Mignola, which I'm a huge Hellboy fan. But this is like him drawing folklore that like outside of the world of Hellboy, and it's just
wow.
It's pretty killer. And this
in a nice hardcover too.
It's a nice hardcover, $24.99. You'll have a penny left. But buy this, and The Future Is Volume 1 and number 8, which I think come out the same day in December.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation.
Those are pretty good. Those are pretty good recommendations. And then you also mentioned, we've talked about the new compact editions. Those are awesome to buy. You can get 2.5 of them for $25. So I love the entry price point. I like the way they look. I mean, I read a lot of manga, and I kind of wondered what it was going to be like shrinking the pages down, but I don't think they lose anything. I think it looks fine. My old man, I turned 40 next month, so my old man eyes don't have to squint or nothing. So.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was looking at Brian Hitch's Drawn Authority, and it looked great. So.
Well, his art looks great. It's hard to make. It's hard to make his art not look great.
Yeah.
Joe, this was so cool, man. I know we both got busy days and deadlines and all sorts of weird stuff to do.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to say about the Kickstarter or comic shops or local comic shop day or Joe Keating that we missed?
Not so much about Joe Keating, but I will say The Future Is Kickstarter. Yeah, it's wrapping up. We'd love to have your support. It's going to be a killer edition, and also features a cover by Enio that's not available anywhere else. I love working on this book, and I love the community that's around it. And if you haven't gotten into it yet, it's a good way to kind of plug in to it. And then, I don't know, go buy something you haven't read before at your local comic shop. I don't care if I worked on it or not. Just find something, you know? So if you're a Marvel and DC reader, go pick up something from Image or Ignition or, you know, Boom or whoever, or deep dive into, you know, something, I don't know, something you haven't read before. Just go challenge yourself in life. That's it.
That hell yeah, Joe. Take that $25 and challenge yourself in life. That's, I should have put that on the Kickstarter page. Damn, man. All right. Well, I don't think we're going to end it better than that. That's
Well, everybody, that is the last of the content we had prepared for today. I have a couple of other interviews I could air, but I think at this moment, discretion is the better part of valor. I want to thank Jay Burns. I want to thank Sam and Miranda at Dreamers and Make Believers. I want to thank JD McIntyre. I want to thank Danny Shamhart, Jen King, Nick Barucci, Ford Gilmore. I want to thank everybody who was a guest on the show. I want to thank Blake for hosting several panels. I want to thank Shannon Live for hosting several panels. I want to thank the board of ComicsPRO, especially the board of ComicsPRO for helping us put this on. I want to thank Amp Comics, Oni Press, again, ComicsPRO, and everybody else involved for making this thing happen. Guys, I love comic shops. I really do. I wouldn't do what I do. I wouldn't work as hard as I did if I didn't love comics and the people who work to make comics accessible to everybody else. And taking a day like today where my own comfort, my own whatever is put aside to help those people get more notoriety is why I do what I do. So shout out to all of those people. Shout out to everybody out there who's trying to put local comic or trying to put comic books in the hands of comic fans. It's been a long day. I'm going to go get some rest. I love you all. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time.